nobody knew. You know, it's somewhere overseas somewhere. You know, somebody answered, wouldn't it? Say the Japanese. And they say, you mean Hitler, don't you? I say, no, Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. And so I didn't know. I'm 12 years old, so I'm asking and listening and whatnot. And they say, well, we're at war with Japan. And I ask people, what did that mean? They say, you know, hey, we're in war. The war has started. We're in a big war. You know, in other words, they're now tapping into World War II.
A factory worker, rolled up sleeves and a flexed bicep, head wrapped in a red and white bandana. This is the image of Rosie the Riveter. She, with her slogan, "We can do it," represented the millions of civilian women who worked on the American home front during World War II. Her name came from a song.
All the day long, where the rain or shine, she's a part of the assembly line. She's making history, working for victory. Rosie, the Riveter.
The National World War II Museum in New Orleans is celebrating the Rosies who are still living. Here's NPR's Debbie Elliott with the story.
A hero's welcome greets 18 women as they arrive at the National World War II Museum, adorned in the red and white polka dot scarves that are a signature of Rosie the Riveters.
Debbie, I didn't know. I was wishing you were here.
They're here to be honored as Congressional Gold Medal recipients. But first, each Rosie gets a personal tour of the museum, starting in the Homefront exhibit.
I was going to show her to look at the women welders. Now, that's a familiar job right there. I don't know.
Jane Tucker, now 97, left rural Lineville, Alabama in 1943 with her mom and sister to work in a shipyard.
I worked in Savannah, Georgia, building Liberty ships, and I learned to become a welder when I was just 16, and it was all top secret. Loose lips will sink ships was one of the posters.
She was one of an estimated 5 million civilian women who worked in the defense industry and elsewhere while men were fighting overseas. Tucker says they were trailblazers, proving that women can succeed in the workforce.
We did men's jobs, like I was a rod welder, that the men said we couldn't do. They said, oh, they're too emotional, they're too petty, they'll be sick a lot. They won't come to work, and they'll be too weak to do the heavy work. So we said, we can do it.
I found out about this gathering of Rosies in New Orleans because of Jane Tucker.
My niece. My niece, Debbie Elliott.
Tucker has been working for years to preserve the stories of Rosies and how they changed the labor landscape. Kimberly Guys, senior curator at the National World War II Museum, says after the war, these women were generally forced out of the workforce when service members returned home. Still, she says, the symbol endured.
Certainly, Rosie has come to stand for an image of empowerment with the women's movement as a symbol of strength and can-do spirit.
I feel proud at what I did for them. Proud.
That's Mary Massiangelo, who just turned 100. She's from Rochester, New York.
I worked in 1943 in an optical place, and I made pins for the parachutes.
She was 16 years old at the time. Erlinda Avila of Phoenix was just 15.
I was a riveter, and I worked on the B-25 bombers.
It was hard work, she says.
From inside the wings, that's where I used to work. Since I was little enough I could crawl in the wings.
Avila says she was motivated to serve when her brother was drafted and sent to Japan, so she went to the Army recruiter.
I've come to enlist. I want to join the Army. Well, he said, first of all, we don't take women. And I said, well, I'm not a woman, I'm a girl. He said, well, we don't take girls either.
Undeterred, she found work in the defense plant. It was freeing, she says, noting that members of her Navajo tribe could not even vote at the time. Now, as she approaches her 101st birthday next month, Avila offers words of wisdom to young women today.
Don't ever give up. You can do it. Believe in yourselves.
The Gary Sinise Foundation's Soaring Valor program brought this group of Rosies to New Orleans to thank them, says Foundation Vice President Kristen Kampsnyder.
I think that oftentimes it's the soldiers who are really paid attention to, and as they should. And these women are often forgotten. And we're here to remind them that, we do not forget them, and that they really are truly critical and wonderful, and what they did was very, very appreciated.
The foundation is working with the World War II Museum to collect oral histories of the Rosies for the archives here, including African American women.
Weren't that many black girls who did this anyhow? My name is Susan T. King. I was a riveter in World War II in Baltimore, Maryland.
She built small parts for planes and says even though Baltimore was a segregated city at the time, that changed in the aircraft factory.
I think it was the first time in my life that we could go in a dining hall and eat with everybody, because they could not segregate against us when we worked on the federal jobs.
King, now 100 years old, says it took years for her to realize the role she played in American history.
We did this because we wanted to win the war. And I think as I grow older and history of America begins to be told, it's important.
She is a living legacy. We are so proud of her.
That's King's daughter, Kididi Ajanku. She's pleased to see her mother getting her just due while she's still living.
I think people break boundaries and make history every day just to survive, at least African Americans. Survival is doing that. So for my mother to be honored is just due. It's a long time in coming, and I am forever proud.
Indeed, the Rosies were treated like heroes when museum patrons realized who they were.
Well, God bless you. We're very proud of you.
The women happily posed for pictures, muscles flexed in true Rosie form. It was a thrilling experience for Jane Tucker.
Awesome. We never did think we'd be stars when we were building ships. But look at this, and thanks to people who care about the women and their freedom.
Tucker says she's proud knowing Rosie's opened doors that had been closed to women before the war. Debbie Elliott, NPR News, New Orleans.
I thought I asked for an African American to replace Terry.
You requested an Afro-American?
African American. Jerry, you know I did. I put it in writing.
I didn't see it. You see it?
If you don't like her, you send her back.
Yeah, you tell her you didn't like her performance because she was white.
What? That's not the point.
Flipper, she's been here for 5 minutes. Give her a chance. This sounds dangerously like reverse discrimination to me.
And finally, we end on Elon Musk versus Netflix's hit show Adolescence. Just when you thought Elon Musk had run out of things to tweet about, the billionaire has now turned his gaze to the Netflix drama. This time, he's taken a stab at the streamer's British series Adolescence, calling it out for what he claims is a racially reimagined portrayal of a teen killer. Musk has officially entered the chat by backing an ex-user who claims the show is an anti-white propaganda tool. Here's the latest on Elon Musk and his bizarre rants.
Billionaire entrepreneur and full-time internet stirrer Elon Musk has found a new battlefield: Netflix. After a brief hiatus from firing off hot takes, Musk returned to X to blast Netflix's latest smash hit, Adolescence, a show that's been lauded for being gritty, gripping, and apparently very offensive to Musk's sensibilities. In an X post that criticized the show, Musk commented, "Wow." The X user wrote, "The show, which follows a 13-year-old British schoolboy who fatally stabs a classmate, was not only based on real events, but had the audacity to race swipe the alleged killer." According to the user, who Musk responded to, the killer was a black migrant, and the show changed it to a white teenager radicalized by online forums. His verdict? Just the absolute state of anti-white propaganda. The claim was cooked up by internet personality Ian Miles Chong. He posted a detailed note on X connecting the show to real-life UK crimes. That is when Musk sneaked inside his comment section with his opinion. And after this what happened, netizens had a field day. Someone wrote it stinks of whitewashing. While one user called the claims ridiculous, one emotional user called the show a rewriting of reality. One account dismissed the tweet as a complete lie. The show's co-creator, Jack Thorne, promptly pulled up to the drama in a damage control mode. Speaking on a podcast, he said, and I quote, "Are you kidding me?" He clarified that the story is not based on any one crime and called the whole race swap accusation both absurd and harmful. Jack Thorne elaborated that the show isn't about race at all. It is about masculinity, or more accurately, toxic masculinity. Additionally, it is also about the digital hellscape that's raising young boys today. He said, and I quote, "We're just saying, hey, maybe we should talk about what's going on with our boys before they start stabbing people." Fair point. The 4-part series, directed by Philip Barantini and starring British acting heavyweights Stephen Graham, Ashley Walters, and Erin Doherty, dives deep into the psychological and social dynamics behind the tragic stabbing. It doesn't sugarcoat, and it doesn't shy away from the messy stuff either. And audiences are eating it up. Since its release on March 17, Adolescence has racked up a jaw-dropping 66.3 million views. That's not just a hit, that's a cultural moment.
Yeah? Describe each other as friends then.
So whether you think Adolescence is an eye-opening commentary on troubled youth or just more woke propaganda, one thing is clear. Netflix knows how to start a conversation, and Elon Musk knows how to hijack it.
It's crazy.
Stop using and selling drugs to one another. See, we're getting ready to be put in a real trap with this legalization of marijuana. So everybody, every black person can be unemployed, and then they can sit in their corner and get high on marijuana with whatever they decide to put in it. And people won't be asking for jobs and being determined that they're going to get jobs and going to get an education. No, everybody can start getting high on marijuana because somebody said it's medicinal and it's legal.
What about,
so we better beware.
What about the people who say the legalization of marijuana is fighting against racism because you have so many black people who are unjustly incarcerated as a result of racist enforcement of these drug laws? So this would be a good thing, and it would keep black people out of greater confinement.
No, we can do it by stop using and selling drugs to one another. See, if I'm not using drugs, then I can't be incarcerated for drugs. And I see so many males, young males in my practice who have become psychotic, almost never to return to normal from marijuana use because you don't know what's in it.
More than half of states in the United States have made marijuana legal for medical or recreational use. But it's still illegal on the federal level, which means it's up to the states to figure out how to regulate everything from vape pens to popcorn sprinkled with THC. Really, that's a thing? As part of our How Safe Is Your Weed series, NPR's Sydney Lupkin went to one of the world's major weed markets, California.
At Vibe Cultivators, an indoor cannabis farm in Sacramento, the first thing to hit you is the smell. Earthy, skunky, whatever you want to call it, that is some pungent weed. There are aisles of plants growing on 2 levels under artificial lights.
This room is probably a week or 2 from being harvested.
That's Brian Pritchard giving me the tour. Every plant has a state-sanctioned blue tag with an ID number. It's a sign that this isn't weed grown by a guy who knows a guy. California legalized recreational marijuana in 2016. Pritchard remembers what it was like back when he had to be quiet about his work.
Before, I'd go to Home Depot and I'd tell them, oh, I need this part and this part to make something. Well, they want to know what I'm making. Well, I can't tell you what I'm making. I just need these parts. Now it's a lot more open.
Now he can just ask for guidance, even from state regulators. In California, that's the Department of Cannabis Control, or DCC. One of its duties is to keep contaminants out, whether that's bacteria, mold, pesticides, or even heavy metals like arsenic. That's because for cannabis, unlike for food or prescription drugs, there's no FDA to keep consumers safe. In that vacuum, weed regulators from several states launched the Cannabis Regulators Association to help each other out. Jillian Schauer is the executive director.
States were struggling to set up literally their own mini FDAs and mini EPAs to try to do the due diligence that was needed.
The states share information, but they don't all test for the same things. In California, the DCC tracks almost every step in the cannabis pipeline. Weed manufacturers even have to report how many pounds of plant trimmings they throw away. Sarah Ruiz oversees inspection teams at the DCC.
We're inhaling these products, and we know how sensitive our respiratory systems are. We all remember the Valley crisis.
The Valley crisis was a 2019 outbreak of lung injuries and hospitalizations across all 50 states linked to vape products. At least 68 people died. The possible health risks of weed aren't confined to smoking. The DCC also regulates edibles like gummies, brownies, and sodas. Down the street from the Sacramento pot farm, there's a factory that makes a product called Wild Gummies. It was a grapefruit day, and I watched as a machine poured the solution into rectangular molds. Everyone is wearing hairnets, masks, and blue gloves. Gabe Parton-Lee is the company's attorney.
Every single batch goes to a lab. So after it's cured, after its final package goes to distribution, then it goes out to testing.
The finished gummies are tested at one of 27 licensed labs around the state before they reach consumers. Overseeing all the labs is this one in Richmond, near San Francisco, the official lab of the Department of Cannabis Control. I watch research scientist Adam Malinowski take a sample of ground-up marijuana leaves. He's going to put it with a growth medium to see if any mold appears.
These are how we incubate our cannabis samples. So we take 1 gram of cannabis and we place it in this stomaching bag. Basically, it has a membrane to divide it, so you can put your cannabis on one side and media.
They use sensitive machines to test for hundreds of contaminants. His boss, Antonio Frazier, says over the last 5 years, the regulated marijuana has gotten a lot cleaner.
We test for both products off the legal shelf and for law enforcement in the illicit market, and we see levels of illegal pesticides that are 100 times the action limit coming from the illicit market.
In other words, it's still safer to buy regulated weed than illicit weed, even though it's more expensive. Regulation can also mean recalls. California had 63 last year. That meant sellers had to yank nearly 25,000 individual units of cannabis products from their shelves. Vibe cultivators didn't have anything recalled. Brian Pritchard says the regulation is doing its job, which helps him do his job.
I don't have to sneak in at midnight to get my work done anymore. It's a major improvement. The only people that are going to complain about it are the people who are doing stuff wrong.
But many here do wish that eventually cannabis will be legal nationwide and regulated that way. Sydney Lupkin, NPR News.
Talking about South Carolina, I'm thinking about South Carolina, I'm nervous about South Carolina, have a mom in it, South Carolina, woman down in it, South Carolina, put my head in it, South Carolina, Orangeburg in it, South Carolina, something in it, South Carolina.
4 people are now facing charges accused of starting a massive fire at Table Rock State Park in South Carolina. Arrest warrants show these 3 teen suspects and an unnamed juvenile failed to put out their lit cigarettes while hiking on the trail. They're now charged with 1 count each of negligently allowing fire to spread to lands or property of another and as a misdemeanor.
The Table Rock fire has burned more than 13,000 acres total in South Carolina and in North Carolina since it started on March 21st. According to the South Carolina Forestry Commission website, it was 91% contained as of last night. At least 1,400 homes and businesses have been evacuated.
Now, if convicted, the suspects in this case could face up to 30 days in jail or a $200 fine. We do want to bring in Chief Legal Analyst Conley Rhodes to talk more about what happens legally in a case like this next. I mean, we're talking about possible jail time, a fine here for, doesn't matter whether they intended to start a fire. I guess it's what actually happened, right, Khalif?
That 100%. This is not a specific intent crime, and it's not may have jail time. It's must, even though it's not a lot of jail time. If you look at the statute, as Jason talked about, negligently allowing fire to spread to lands or property of another, in South Carolina, it says it must. They must, if convicted, do at least 5 days in jail. Again, not much if you're talking about 14,000 acres. You're talking about 14,000 plus homes being evacuated, but it says must, so there will be some type of jail time. Must do 5 days at a minimum and 30 days as a maximum. So that is the most punishment that can happen. But when you talk about intent, because I've heard a lot of folks talk about, well, this is arson, this is arson. Well, that does require intent. It has to be malicious. It has to be willful. This, on the other hand, does not. It's just clearly, it says it in the wording. It's negligent. Intent is off the table. If you're smoking, if you do something and you knew or should have known that it should have been put out, smoking a cigarette, smoking something else on the trail, at some point, yeah, it needs to be extinguished, and it wasn't.
It said in there that they were released with a $7,500 personal recognizance bond. Is that basically them just saying, we realize what we did, we should have paid more attention, pay the money, and then now it's over? Like, what happens?
No, and so all that's pre-trial, and I mean, that's actually a great question. Well, you have multiple stages with a charge. You have the pre-trial portion where you're still waiting to be, either found guilty, found not guilty, case dismissed. But in that interim, before you actually go to court, before your case progresses through that process, we have this process, and your do right process kicks in as a defendant. Can they hold me? Should they hold me? Do they set some conditions for release? Well, what do those conditions for release look like? Is it a secured bond? Do I have to pay a lot of money to get out? Is it unsecured? Do I have to pay no money and just promise to get there? Is it a release on your own recognizance or a written promise to appear, which is most states have that kind of language that's basically the same thing, saying that I'm going to let you go, you're promising to appear, and if you don't appear, then we as in the state are going to come and get you.
Well, so we know that 4 people have been charged in this. 3 of them, we showed them they're teens, but they are adults. But there's a minor involved in this case. So is there still that mandatory serving time for a minor? We don't know how old this person is.
You guys are all hitting home runs. So what I can say is that the juvenile process is extremely different, while the criminal justice system for the adults has 2 components, either rehabilitative portion or this punishment criminal portion where you're trying to punish, deter folks from doing this future crime. Juvenile crimes are specifically more rehabilitative, and so their process will be entirely different. Even charged with the same charge, the juvenile process from the very beginning looks at trying to ensure that a person doesn't, make this stop their life. Like one offense. And so, no, they wouldn't have that mandatory time, but they wouldn't even go through this adult process. So it will look entirely different.
For the adults there, that mandatory minimum, does that mean that a probation before judgment is off the table?
Well, typically you don't have probation before judgment. You'd have some type of, if you wanted to ensure that person would be there, if you had a question that, maybe they had a history of failing to appear, so you may put them on some type of ankle monitor or some type of home confinement.
No, but a PBJ, they can't do that?
Potentially. You could ask for that, but in this situation, I think because of the spotlight, because everyone is talking about it, because of the significant damage, because we're trying to find ways for accountability, I don't think that route is happening. The route that's happening right now is you'll be waiting, you'll be sitting, and then you will have some type of process. There will be a plea at some point. Hey, I don't see this going to trial because this isn't something that you could try to fight. But what I can tell you is that at the end of the day, those 3, if convicted, will be doing some type of time and paying some significant fine.
Khalif, quickly, we live in a world where a lot of people will sue just about over anything to try to get their hands on a little extra money. Can any property owners that lost barns or fences or whatever damage that came from this, could they, I don't know, turn around and go, listen, whether it was intent or whether it was innocent, I want to sue the family of these 4 to try to get some money back for what I lost? Who helps pay for that if insurance doesn't cover something?
I think that is also another great question. So what I would tell you is that in law school, they tell you always want to try to figure out when you're filing some type of claim to figure out where the big pot is. You don't want to file a claim against someone, spend the resources that it takes to go do discovery, do interrogatories, do depositions. Litigation is expensive. And so if a firm is taking on this case, typically they're doing it where they'll cover the cost and then you get some payout at the end. Well, if I'm suing, random person, most of the time random person doesn't have the millions to cover what it would take to cover your damages, let alone to cover your attorney fees. And so you really have to see, and most of the time an attorney will get an investigator and look into these individuals' families. And now if one of them has the resources, has the means, has some type of family that has multiple acres of property, has things that they can connect to, then yes, you will go after them and their family. But then you also have to connect because they're adults. You have to connect the culpability to the parents, not just me getting a claim against them, but now how do I connect that claim from the children, I should say, these teens, these adults, to their parents? So then that's also another step. Now, if they were younger, I think you may have another connection because they would still be under the direction of their parents. But these are adults. So even if you get a claim, it's going to be against an 18, 19-year-old teenager that probably doesn't have the multi-million dollars to be able to go and compensate for the loss that you've encountered.
Yeah, it's a lot different than what we've seen with wildfires out in California, where they're suing energy companies for stuff like this.
Because they got the big bank. You're looking for the
Yes.
person that has, or the company that has the big bank. And you're going backwards, it's municipalities, it's big, insurance companies, it's anyone that you can sue. And then it trickles down to the individuals that, may or may not have something.
And our chief legal analyst, Khalif Rhodes, breaking that all down for us there. The teenagers facing those charges. Khalif, appreciate it.
The man knot, race, class, genre, and the dilemmas of black manhood.
The Frisco Memorial High School community gathered tonight in grief after the stabbing death of a teenager at a track meet.
Another teenager, a student at Frisco Centennial, is now charged with the murder. 17-year-old Austin Metcalf's twin brother was at the track with him. His family says he died in his brother's arms. Fox 4's Amelia Jones spoke with the victim's father and is live in Frisco tonight. Amelia.
Steve, Heather, 17-year-old Austin Metcalf had a bright future ahead of him. He was a leader on the football field and a scholar in the classroom. His dad told me he's holding on to memories and leaning deep on his faith as he tries to wrap his mind around this senseless tragedy.
He was going to turn out to be a great individual and impact this world with positivity.
17-year-old Austin Metcalf was voted MVP of the Frisco Memorial High School varsity football team. The linebacker held a near-perfect GPA and was in the National Honor Society.
He was on the right track. He was doing everything right. I was so proud.
Jeff Metcalf never imagined that his son's future would be cut short.
I'm still in shock.
Wednesday morning, Austin Metcalf was at a District 11 5A track meet at Kirkendall Stadium. Around 10 a.m., Frisco police say 17-year-old Carmelo Anthony stabbed Metcalf in the chest after some sort of fight. Jeff Metcalf says it was Austin's twin brother, Hunter Metcalf, who tried to save him.
And his brother was holding him, trying to hold the blood in, and he passed. My son watched his brother die in his arms.
It's unclear how Anthony got the knife into the meat or what exactly led up to the fight. Anthony is now facing first-degree murder charges, and Jeff Metcalf
It was the best weekend ever.
Is only left with memories.
I was able to watch and be blessed so much. But having both my sons are amazing.
When Jeff Metcalf was diagnosed with cancer 9 years ago, his boys were his strength. Now cancer-free, it's his faith that's keeping him strong.
And when I kissed his forehead today, as his body was cold, I ran my fingers through his hair. I told him it's not goodbye. It's see you later. I'll join you at some point too, son. You just beat me to this place.
Wednesday night, the family's church opened its doors for the community to gather for a prayer vigil to honor a young man whose life touched so many.
But I know he's with the Lord. And I take comfort and peace in that.
In our conversation, Jeff mentioned that he hopes his son's death brings changes to security so no other parent has to go through this. Memorial High School will honor Austin tomorrow during second period, and counselors will be available for any students or staff who need it.
A terrible thing to waste. Environmental racism and its assault on the American mind. Written by Harriet A. Washington.
Earlier this week, workers from the Environmental Protection Agency marched in downtown Chicago to protest plans to cut funding and staffing. The head of the EPA says he wants to cut the agency's budget by 65%. Some employees say this could compromise fundamental functions of the agency, tasked with safeguarding the air, water, and health of the country. WBEZ's Juan Pablo Ramirez Franco sat down with a scientist with the EPA's Environmental Justice Program based in the Chicago office. Ellie Hagan believes her job is going to be eliminated.
Ellie, you're a scientist. You help do community outreach work at the EPA. Tell us a little bit about what drew you to do this job.
Yeah, so first I want to say that I'm here representing just myself, not the EPA, and here representing my labor union, American Federation of Government Employees. So I was really lucky to grow up in a family who cared a lot about nature, so I grew up outside a lot. It was later in my life that I realized kind of the impact that the environment has on people's health. My mom got diagnosed with breast cancer when I was very young, and she ended up passing away from a rare and serious form of breast cancer called inflammatory breast cancer. When I became a geologist, when I graduated, I started working on a site in a rural town in Ohio, and I found out that my mom actually worked there. My mom was one of 3 geologists who was taking samples. The site was a plant where they would enrich uranium for the Cold War, so it was contaminated with a lot of nuclear contamination and also contamination from chemicals. But you know, she was one of 3 geologists that was taking a lot of the TCE samples to characterize the extent of the contamination, and all 3 of those geologists ended up getting rare and serious forms of cancer, and 2 of them passed away. It's just a reality that different places in the U.S. face different levels of pollution, and different people are more vulnerable to that pollution. So that's where kind of my passion for environmental health and environmental justice was born.
You just mentioned environmental justice. The Trump administration has announced plans to eliminate the environmental justice program at the EPA. That program was started in 1992 under President George Bush, a Republican. So why is this particular program being targeted for cuts now?
You know, that's a great question. I think that there's this narrative that environmental justice is a political issue or is a partisan issue, but as you mentioned, it's not. I think regardless of what side of the aisle you're on, you can agree that everyone deserves clean air. Everyone deserves clean water. Everyone deserves clean land to live on. That's not a partisan or political issue.
Can you give us an example of how these proposed cuts might affect the public?
So environmental justice at EPA is essentially just a prioritization system, ensuring that people who are most impacted by pollution and people who are most vulnerable to the health impacts of that pollution receive the resources that they need. The Midwest has a lot of Rust Belt towns, right, where there was historic pollution from like mining or smelting activities, and that can cause lead and other heavy metals to accumulate in the soil and just sit there. So there's a lot of legacy pollution. So I have a memory of a town in Ohio. A mother came in with her children and her baggie of soil and told me that she collected the sample where her kids like to dig and play. And when I screened that soil sample, the result was around 1,000 parts per million of lead. And for context, the national average is around 30 parts per million of lead. And I just remember seeing the devastated look on her face, knowing that her kids were potentially exposed to that. Being able to respond to direct community needs and community concerns to help keep people safe and keep people's environment safer is what the Environmental Justice Program did. And with these cuts, I don't think that there's anyone who's going to be prioritizing these communities anymore.
Do you think the agency will be able to carry out its job, including things that are required by law, amidst all these cuts?
So Administrator Zeldin has made a statement. He said, "We are driving a dagger straight into the heart of the climate change religion, unleash American energy, and bring back auto jobs to the U.S. and more." You know, bringing back auto jobs to the U.S. is not a law that we have. It's hard to understand how we're expected to implement that when our mission is to protect human health and the environment. I think what we're seeing is this kind of false assertion that we have to choose between a prosperous economy and a prosperous environment. We're the richest country in the world. We don't have to make that choice. I think deregulating and degrading our environment does not make us more efficient. It doesn't make us stronger. It only makes us sicker, and it makes us weaker.
That's EPA scientist Ellie Hagan speaking with WBEZ's Juan Pablo Ramirez-Franco. The story is part of a partnership with GRIST and WBEZ.
Why haven't you learned anything?
Yeah, right now 3 schools remain closed over lead hazards. Fernwood Montessori School, Starms Early Childhood Center, and La Follette School. 12 News' Kendall Keys is live at Starms. Kendall, the district saying it needed to make some serious changes.
Ray Blake, NPS and the city concerned with how the district got here, the neglect that led to peeling lead paint in classrooms, and how Sean Kane was attempting to fix it. Now, 12 News asked the district if Kane was fired. They wouldn't confirm or deny, only saying that he had separated from the district. Now, his departure comes as multiple schools remain shut down, including Starms, because of lead hazards found inside.
Sean Kane, who has served as Senior Director of Facilities and Maintenance Services, will no longer serve in that role and is separating from the district.
Months into a lead paint crisis within Milwaukee Public Schools, a serious leadership shakeup. The district's facilities and maintenance manager is now out of a job.
I never want to see anybody lose their job or their role. However, I do think at this moment it was warranted to help move us into this next step.
In November, a sick child prompted the health department to search for the source of lead poisoning. Fast forward to April, 7 schools have now been found to have dangerous levels of lead, peeling paint found on doors, windows, in bathrooms, and in classrooms. The City Commissioner of Health and Milwaukee Mayor Cavalier Johnson.
We recognize that there are issues.
Joining new Superintendent Brenda Cassellius, announcing the city is stepping in. Mikhail Mannon from the City Health Department will now head up the lead cleanup process. And Mike Terza, a retired MPS leader, will help lead the Facilities and Maintenance Department.
Whose decision was it to bring the city in to take his spot?
Well, you know, it is a mutual decision. I had called the mayor and asked for help.
Kane's departure comes shortly after 12 News learned the state fined him $1,300 following a months-long investigation concerning a lapse in his architecture license.
Is there going to be any further investigation into Sean Kane's potential oversight or missteps that led to where we are now?
Well, again, I'm not going to speak to matters of personnel matters at this time.
And Kendall, the health department pointed to pushback from Kane in the early days of the district's lead crisis.
Right, Blake, the Commissioner of Health said back in January, Kane at first didn't let the health department into Golda Meir School, delaying the city's entry for a lead risk assessment.
And of course, we know where that led to. Kendall Keys live in Milwaukee for us tonight.
Milwaukee.
My son, that every once in a while makes a cameo on the show, Gray, has about 5 things he will eat in his whole life in his rotation.
Okay.
A vegetable is not in there. He'll eat fruit, but vegetables he will not touch. Grilled cheese, turkey sandwich, corn dogs, every once in a while a chicken tender, and that's about it. Maybe 4 things. Donuts.
Picture this. It's lunchtime at school, the bell rings, kids rush to the cafeteria. Normally you'd hear the familiar sounds, chips crunching, soda bottles opening, candy wrappers being torn apart. It's the soundtrack of any school break, right? But not anymore in Mexico, because from today, Mexico has banned all sorts of junk food in schools. No chips, no soda, no ultra-processed snacks. Only home-cooked meals and plain old water. The goal is to fight an obesity crisis that has reached alarming levels. But will it work? Have other countries tried it before? Our next report tells you.
It's Monday morning in Mexico. There's the usual buzz of school kids, chattering and running through their school gates. But this time, there's something different. No crinkling of chip bags, no clinking of soda bottles, no candy wrappers rustling in their hands. It's because Mexico has banned the sale of junk food in schools. So what led to this decision? Well, Mexico has a problem, a big one. The country has one of the highest obesity rates in the world, and it starts quite young. According to UNICEF, Mexican kids consume more junk than any of their Latin American peers. Soda, candy, chips. These ultra-processed foods make up a staggering 40% of their daily calorie intake. The result, 1/3 of the nation's children are overweight or obese.
There is a high level of acceptance of this policy among parents. Some young people still don't like the idea very much, but deep down, they know it's for their health.
And this isn't the first time. Mexico has tried to tackle this problem earlier as well. In 2020, they tried warning labels. They were black and ominous and found on junk food packets. 2 states went a step further and banned the sale of junk food to children. But they didn't exactly shut down the fiesta. Junk food was still everywhere, sold in school canteens, stuffed in backpacks, and peddled by street vendors just outside school gates. So this time, Mexico is going bigger. Any food or drink that carries a black warning label is now banned from school grounds. And it's not just about taking junk food away. Schools are required to offer healthier alternatives. That means swapping out chips for bean tacos, candy for fresh fruit, and sugary sodas for plain water. Administrators caught breaking the rules face hefty fines. anywhere from $545 to $5,450. Parents are also being urged to pack healthier lunches.
I hope all parents continue the trend, so we are no longer the #1 country in childhood obesity. We have childhood obesity, and diseases like childhood diabetes are on the rise.
But does an all-out ban actually work? Other countries have tried similar approaches. Chile has arguably been the boldest in this arena. In 2016, the country enacted a sweeping set of regulations, banning cartoon mascots on sugary cereal boxes, forbidding junk food ads targeting children, and implementing front-of-package warning labels. The result? A 25% drop in sugary drink sales in just a few years. But soon, companies found loopholes. The UK took a slightly different route, opting for a sugar tax on soft drinks in 2018. They didn't want to ban outright, but wanted to nudge kids into choosing better. In 2023, Norway restricted all advertisements of unhealthy foods, especially to those under the age of 18. But the results have been a hit or a miss. It's one thing to ban junk food inside schools, but what about outside? Street vendors aren't just going to pack up and leave. As long as there's demand, there will be supply. Then there's the affordability issue. Junk food isn't just tasty, it's also cheap. And for many low-income families, a bag of chips is an easier option. So will this ban actually work? It's too early to say, but what's clear is that Mexico is serious about trying to turn things around.
You're dirt. We think you're dirt, Paul. Who is we? The West, all the superpowers, everything you believe in, Paul. They think you're dirt. They think you're dumb. You're worthless.
I'm afraid I don't understand what you are saying, sir.
Oh, come on, don't bullshit me, Paul. You're the smartest man here. You got them all eating out of your hands. You could own this freaking hotel, except for one thing. You're black. You're not even a nigger. You're an African.
And while the U.S. has steered clear of any controversy in Mauritius, it remains deep in severe diplomatic tensions with South Africa over what it describes as the discrimination against the white population in the country. As ties deteriorate, Pretoria has been bouncing back in its efforts to repair relations with the U.S. In the latest, South Africa sent a delegation of senior diplomats to Washington to clarify misconceptions from the Trump administration that have soured the bilateral ties. Now, the delegation was led by South Africa's G20 Sherpa Zane Dangor, who met with the U.S. National Security Council's Africa Director, the Acting Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs, and the Treasury Department representatives. Now, this meeting comes after the U.S. expelled the veteran South African ambassador Ebrahim Rasool last month over his controversial remarks against U.S. President Donald Trump. Now, this followed U.S. aid cuts over Trump's claims about land confiscation in South Africa under its land reforms. Trump also offered white South Africans refugee status in the U.S. In Washington, the South African delegates intended to explain the country's policies. They offered clarifications regarding the controversial Land Expropriation Act, explaining the conditions under which the government will seize abandoned or unused farmland for redevelopment. But they stressed that no land will be forcibly confiscated, contrary to Trump's claims. Now, the delegates also addressed misconceptions over race laws intended to undermine minority rights in South Africa. They explained that the post-apartheid government is constitutionally mandated to rectify the injustices of the past, and these initiatives align with the country's commitment to non-racialism. This comes as South African-born tech billionaire Elon Musk, who now heads the U.S. Department of Government Efficiency, has repeatedly claimed that the South African government is encouraging a quote-unquote white genocide in the country. a claim that Pretoria categorically disregards. Now, the South African delegation also briefed the UN General Assembly on the country's ambitions for its G20 presidency this year, which carries the theme solidarity, equality, and sustainability. The U.S. Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, refused to attend the first G20 foreign ministers meeting in February, saying it had an anti-American agenda. Other disagreements between the two countries are also over some of South Africa's foreign policies, including its case against Israel at the International Court of Justice over the war in Gaza. But with the United States being South Africa's second biggest trading partner, will Pretoria's pursuit of dialogue with Trump work in its favor? We will continue to track all of the developments.
Well, Haiti is on the list of what's supposed to be. Haiti, the people who are called Haitians, predominantly are people who are classified as non-white, but they're not supposed to ever have anything under the system of white supremacy except punishment.
And finally, we shift our focus to the deepening crisis in Haiti, where the capital, Port-au-Prince, has become a battleground controlled by powerful armed gangs. Clashes erupted as thousands took to the streets to protest against surging gang violence. And at least a dozen of the protesters were heavily armed and opened fire on officers who responded outside the offices of the Prime Minister and the Transitional Presidential Council. Some demonstrators also brandished machetes as they weaved their way through the streets of the capital city. Protesters set up barricades and blocked roads, prompting shops and schools to close as Port-au-Prince was largely paralyzed.
We came here to give the government our demands. We demand freedom, we demand security. We need to be able to work and save our country.
Armed gangs that already control 85% of the capital are in fact pillaging communities in a bid to seize control of even more territory, forcing over 60,000 to flee their homes last month alone. These gangs have even started plundering communities beyond Port-au-Prince now. In fact, earlier this week, they attacked the city of Mirabelles in central Haiti, where they stormed a prison and released more than 500 inmates. For nearly a year, a transitional government has been in place in Haiti. However, it's been unable to stem the violence unleashed by a coalition of gangs known as V Ensemble. The unrest has forced over 1 million people to flee their homes, pushed thousands into severe hunger, and has crippled the nation's economy. These gangs have been accused of widespread extortion, mass rapes, and killings. Many critics point fingers at the transitional government, alleging that their poor response is linked to corruption and even collusion with the armed gangs and their financial backers. The government, however, vehemently denies these accusations, and adding to Haiti's woes, the United States announced a 10% tariff on goods from Haiti. The situation in Haiti remains deeply precarious, and now the added burden of tariffs raises further concerns about the future stability and well-being of the Haitian people.
So do you think your situation would be better, the same, worse if you had stayed in Wisconsin?
I think it would have been worse. And so part of the tragedy that brought me to California is that I was homeless in Wisconsin around my whole quote-unquote family. Okay, so if I had stayed in Wisconsin.
It's Wisconsin Today. I'm Rob Farrett. Over a century ago, Wisconsin became the first state to provide compensation for people who served prison sentences for crimes it turned out they hadn't committed. At the time, the maximum award was $5,000. That would be roughly $160,000 in today's money. Wisconsin's wrongful conviction compensation has been updated once in 1979. According to a new data analysis, Wisconsin has gone from being at the forefront of this issue to having the second lowest compensation rate nationwide. Khushbu Rathore is a fellow at Wisconsin Watch and ran the numbers. She talked to Kate Archer-Kent last week.
Not every state has wrongful conviction compensation. Lay it out for us. What is this money and when is it dispersed?
Yeah, so the federal standard is that people who were put in federal jail, at least, and were later found to be innocent or exonerated, according to the federal government, they're entitled to some amount of compensation for each year they spent in prison. And so the federal standard is $50,000 per year. In Wisconsin, the standard is $5,000 per year up to a maximum of $25,000, which I found absolutely mind-boggling when I first heard about it. You know, the maximum Wisconsin allows is half of the federal standard for a single year. And then you have people who are in prison for decades who are not getting really any support when they're released and they were innocent.
How do we compare to other states, though?
Really, really terribly. The only state that's worse than us overall is Montana, and that's because Montana only provides education assistance, so they don't provide any monetary compensation. Of the states that provide monetary compensation, we are by far the worst. We provide $4,200 per year loss to exonerees, and this is just the exonerees who were paid, and there are many who either don't apply or don't get any payout.
What is the role then of the Wisconsin Claims Board that can recommend additional compensation? When do they step in?
All the claims will go through them, and they, in the letters that they have that show the results of the claim, they'll show, here's what the exoneree said, and then the district attorney office in that county will usually have their own little piece. Sometimes the district attorney will say nothing. They'll be like, it's up to the claims board to decide. Otherwise, sometimes they'll say, yeah, we don't think this person is innocent, or, you know, their evidence isn't clear and convincing. And so the claims board gets to decide on their criteria, which is the evidence clear and convincing that this person was put in jail incorrectly and that they are innocent? So there's this huge distinction there of you can be exonerated because of a vacated judgment or because of, you know, legal issues when it came to your trial, like your attorney was incompetent, or in one case there was someone who was chained down during his trial and the jury could see that, and a federal judge later said, you know, we need to vacate his judgment because of that. But the claims board said, you know, just because that happened doesn't mean you were innocent, and you can't prove your innocence even though you have messages from the people who you say committed the crime saying that they committed the crime and you weren't involved. Like, that's not enough evidence, so you don't get any payout.
It sounds like the Wisconsin Claims Board wields sweeping a lot of power.
They do. They basically have all the power in the situation, and in some cases they do recommend, you know, if a person has been in jail for an extremely long time, they can recommend that the legislature provide extra money. So in some cases people have gotten over $1 million and over that $25,000 limit.
Does this compensation or this cash payout include anything other than money?
It does not. They can apply separately in the same document, but as a separate category for attorney's fees. But other than that, a lot of other states will provide things like help with healthcare for the first few years, help with reintegrating into society, help with higher education, housing. Wisconsin provides none of that.
Can you open your reporter's notebook for us? What tipped you off on this story? Where did you begin with the data?
I just landed on the Wisconsin Claims Board website somehow, and I saw that they had a separate listing for innocent conviction compensations. And I started looking at that, and it was not in any kind of data set. It was just every single document that included one of those. And you kind of had to scroll through all the legalese to find the actual information about how much was requested, how much was given, why it was denied. And so I decided to take that information, and I kind of realized, okay, well, the claims board data is only really going to show people who did apply. So I started looking for other sources for people who have been exonerated, and I found the University of Michigan Law School's National Registry of Exonerations. And so I decided to kind of filter down to just 2005 onwards, kind of get a 20-year look at it. And I also found another source called For Justice. I compiled those three into my own kind of database, and then I also used a data set that the National Registry of Exonerations kind of compiled about each of the states and how they stack up to each other.
And along the way, did you figure out how often Wisconsin is denying compensation for years spent in prison?
I did. So it was more than half, but a lot of those people didn't receive the full amount they asked for. They may have received very minor amounts, or really like just attorney's fees in some cases.
Is there any state legislation in the works or any efforts by lawmakers to change this system?
So there were, and that's kind of what continued to make me want to push through the story, is seeing, okay, so there were attempts in, I believe it was 2016 and 2017 to create legislation that would raise the ceiling for innocent conviction compensation. And it made it through the assembly with no problem, but then it stopped at the Senate. They just never pushed it onto the floor. And I talked to State Senator LaTanya Johnson from Milwaukee, and she mentioned, there's just kind of no appetite for the bill. They don't think that it would pass right now, and we both kind of agreed, it's a really common sense bill. People who are getting out of jail after being exonerated shouldn't have to just go out into the world and it'd be like, we took your entire life away, but here's $25,000. But there's not a lot that the legislature wants to do about it.
Khushbu, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Khushbu Rathore is the Roy W. Howard Fellow with the nonpartisan investigative newsroom Wisconsin Watch. She recently published a data analysis of how Wisconsin compensates people who are wrongfully convicted. As we look more closely at the impact of wrongful conviction compensation, we turn to Jarrett Adams. In 2000, a Wisconsin court wrongfully convicted and sentenced Adams 28 years in prison for a crime he did not commit. Adams is an attorney and exoneree specializing in criminal defense, civil rights, and wrongful conviction cases in state and federal courts. His memoir is called Redeeming Justice. Jarrett, welcome to Wisconsin Today.
Thank you so much for having me. Glad to be here.
You were denied compensation in 2009, 2 years after being released from prison. The Wisconsin Claims Board said in your case it lacked clear and convincing evidence. Can you recount that story?
Yes. 17 years old. I am born and raised in the state of Illinois. I go to a party in Wisconsin, falsely accused of a sexual assault, wrongfully convicted based on police withholding evidence from a witness that would have exonerated me. I ended up getting the Wisconsin Innocence Project to take on my appeal. We appealed. The court unanimously overturned my conviction based on my attorney failing to investigate, and not what I previously mentioned, not the fact that the police never turned it over, which was a statement from a witness that assisted in my exoneration. So the conviction's reversed. I come home, but the damage is not reversed. I get out and I'm staying with my mom and my stepfather, and I'm not out until I'm 26, turning 27 years old. So the impact of what was taken from me was definitely felt. But I started to look up after that decision. That decision compelled me to be where I am today. I took that decision to mean more than just I couldn't by clear and convincing evidence, because I started to go back and read all of the other cases as well that were denied. And it was pretty much, if you didn't have DNA clearing you, or you didn't have someone else, standing up and saying, I did it, or the actual accuser saying you didn't do it, they would deny all of them. I mean, even though evidence would be overwhelming in innocence. So to me, when they denied me, I didn't just take that as a denial and, it's just, how they felt. I took that as another direct attack to take more of my life from me by watching me fail.
When you're ultimately freed from prison, What is your situation like? Where did you find stability and income?
So I ended up, I started with my mom's and my stepfather's network of people, literally cleaning gutters. If it was wintertime, shoveling snow. This is when TVs were being hung on walls. So I would go around and hang people's, I did whatever I needed to do during the day so that I can get through school at night. You know, I can remember this even more vividly. It wasn't just when they denied me. Um, they denied me, and then afterwards, one of the board members told me, "I'm sorry this happened to you. Good luck in life." And that was almost like that was like more of a slap in the face to me, where you had the opportunity to assist. That $25,000 would have helped me, would have cured all the things that I experienced. No, I wouldn't have, but it would have helped me get plenty, back on my feet and start to do something. So I took that again as they wanted to see me further fail. So I'm working during the day, I'm going to school at night. And my mom and my aunts were both professionals. My aunt, she believed in therapy. And so she told me that I needed to take therapy. So I was on my own. But thankfully, I had my father, and I have something that most people who go through this don't have. And that's still their youth ahead of them.
Compensation, as we talk about the standard amount, maximum $5,000 a year, kept at $25,000. I mean, Wisconsin was a pioneer, 1913, leading the country in wrongful conviction compensation. What has happened to these efforts? What are your insights?
The petitioner has changed. So back in 1913, when this happened, the petitioner was not, majority of people of color like it is now. And that's a derivative of the entire justice system and how disproportionately people of color are convicted more than their counterparts in the state of Wisconsin. And so we've found ourselves making it easily digestible to ignore the problem when a problem doesn't make it on the majority's doorsteps. And so if we can acknowledge that back in 1913, that there was some need to help correct and put people back on their feet, let's just look at the cost of living. If you do the calculations, then there's no way in the world that number shouldn't be somewhere around $50,000 to $75,000 to $100,000 a year. It's just right.
You are representing brothers, David and Robert Vince of Green Bay. They're seeking $2 million each from the state for their 24 years spent in prison for a murder they didn't commit. What about $2 million? What do you think justifies that compensation?
The staff that I have in Wisconsin, everybody took turns like going through and making best arguments and looking at cases that were decided over the statute before. And we could find none that hit all of the hallmarks as this one. If this is granted, this would be the highest they've ever went over in $2 million. And here's our argument why. There was a case in which the legislators granted $1 million over the statute. And that was to someone who came home at the end of their 30s, about to approach 40. They still had opportunity to work until the years of retirement start to approach around 50, 55. In this case, Robert and David are home at 70 years old. There's nothing they can do right now besides have their hands out and beg the community to push the legislators and everyone else to fix this situation for them. But they're also concerned about others who come out at the same age as they are.
What should be the model here? What would you direct the state of Wisconsin to do? Are there other states that are making inroads?
There are, shockingly, to probably some in the criminal justice community, Texas is really like leading the charge in what they do. They give mental health care support, they give health care support, and they also give, little pots of money and resources to help with both like finding a place to stay. Like we're having the biggest problem with David and where he stays and where he's, able to stay. So is with Bobby, who's sickly a bit It's hard to find places that will accept their $600-$700 a year, benefits money that they're able to get. And so in this situation, I think that there's an opportunity for us to endanger both the people we're releasing as well as the communities they're being released back into if we don't help. If there wasn't people like the Wisconsin Innocence Project, like the Great Northern Innocence Project, to assist after they were able to get people out, then there will be nothing. As well as the organization Life After Justice, is an organization I created to help with the mental health care aspect of it, where we are training therapists specifically to treat men like Bobby and David. So they're getting help, but the help that they're getting is pieced together like a puzzle, and it's just not fair or right for tax-paying citizens as David and Bobby were before they were wrongfully convicted.
I want to circle back to what you experienced, and it really sounds like your family stepped in and provided that help and support when you really needed it. And with your organization, Life After Justice, helping people rebuild their lives after being exonerated, how do you see the role of nonprofits helping make up for what the state isn't providing?
I think specifically for my organization, and again, the organization, I found an organization in the spirit of my aunt that I told you about, who helped me get into therapy. I was in a breakneck pace to get my law degree because I wanted my mom and my aunt to be proud of me and know that they supported me for years, that weren't just for nothing. So I made this organization in her name because she saw something that I didn't really see right away. And she told me, she said, look, when life is a marathon, and when someone like you gets out like that, the first thing you need to do is not start running a race. It's tying your shoes. So mental health care to her was tying your shoes. There's no way that anyone can look and see what happens to men and women like Bobby and not think that they would have some type of mental impact from it. So in creating an organization, we are collecting data, and we are using the data to argue to legislators to do what is right. We understand that we're not big enough. We don't get enough donations and have enough therapists on deck to help provide therapy to all those who are wrongfully convicted. But hopefully, as we collect the data, we serve as an example to influence and argue to the legislators, look, this needs to happen. This can save lives and it can protect communities. And that's what you swore to constituents that you would do.
Jarrett, thank you for sharing your story, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I hope you have me again.
Jarrett Adams is an exoneree and attorney whose cases involve criminal defense, civil rights, and wrongful conviction in state and federal courts. His memoir is called Redeeming Justice. We earlier C.O.W.S Rathore from Wisconsin Watch. They both talked to Kate Archer-Kent about the impact of state compensation for people who are wrongfully convicted.
Yeah, this is a story of famous dog. But the dog that chases its tail will be busy. These are trapping dogs, rhythmic dogs, harmonic dogs, house dogs, street dogs, dogs of the world unite, dancing dogs. Yeah, counting dogs, funky dogs, nasty dogs.
We turn now to that viral video of a canine latching onto a woman's ankle at Mayfair Mall, not letting go. Breaking late this afternoon, we've learned the woman from that video now has a lawyer. We've also learned her identity. She is 19-year-old Amira Walls. Tonight, 12 News' Cyria Sandlin is pressing mall and security officials for answers. And we should warn you before we show you this video, it may be hard for some to watch.
This cell phone video going viral shows a security dog latch on to a young woman at Mayfair Mall last Friday night.
The dog bit her. Do the dog, catch it, dog, catch it. Do the dog, catch it.
The dog lets go, then bites back as the guard struggles to gain control. In a second clip, the dog finally lets go when the woman stands up and limps away. The woman in the video, now identified as Amira Walls of Milwaukee. Her attorney is telling us she is injured, suffering, quote, severe complications. It was the security team that called Wauwatosa police about the fight.
251 and 231 for disorderly conduct at the mall, 2500 North Mayfair Road.
Tosa police tell 12 News upon arrival, security told them the fight was over, but did not initially tell them about the canine biting someone. After seeing the viral video Saturday, police followed up and determined Monday no citations were deemed appropriate. 12 News went to the mall Monday looking for answers from the mall security company, Andy Frame.
Hi, I'm Cyria Sandlin with WISN 12. Is there a supervisor on duty I can speak with?
It is. About what?
About the incident Friday involving the canine biting a young woman.
So we're not able to give you any information on that as of now. If you do have any questions or anything, you can go to upper management.
Yeah, I've reached out to your corporate.
Yeah, we're not able to give you any information.
Okay.
The security team refused further comment. A spokesperson for Brookfield Properties, which operates the mall, said comment would only come from Andy Frame's headquarters in Aurora, Illinois. Our emails and calls to their corporate office have gone unanswered for 2 days. Late today, 12 News learned prominent civil rights attorney B. Ivory Lamar is taking on the case, saying, quote, Mayfair has failed to implement effective, humane solutions, raising serious questions about the deployment and oversight of security measures on the premises. He says he plans to hold the responsible parties accountable.
That was 12 News' Cyria Sandlin reporting, and just moments ago, Cyria spoke to Amira Walls' attorney, B. Ivy Lamar, one-on-one. We will share that conversation coming up tonight on 12 News at 10. This is a story 12 News broke over the weekend. You can take a look at all of our reporting and other videos from the incident right now on the 12 News mobile app.
White people kill for fun.
A 17-year-old now charged with the heinous murders of his mother and stepfather.
Prosecutors charging Waukesha West student Nikita C.O.W.S. with first-degree intentional homicide and hiding their bodies.
12 News' Hannah Hilliard is live at the Waukesha County Courthouse. And Hannah, the new allegations are just incredibly disturbing.
All right, Blake, prosecutors here in Waukesha detailing C.O.W.S.'s obsession with gore, and that in the weeks leading up to his parents' deaths, prosecutors say he talked about killing them and the President of the United States.
The first count is first-degree intentional homicide.
Nikita C.O.W.S. walked into the Waukesha County courtroom for the first time charged with the first-degree homicide of his mom, Tatiana C.O.W.S., and his stepfather, Donald Mayer. The two found shot dead and decomposing when sheriff's deputies found them inside their Waukesha home last month.
The highest counts that we have, quite frankly, in our country is what's been alleged here.
A new 14-page criminal complaint says a Waukesha West classmate, identified as Witness A, told investigators C.O.W.S. mentioned that, quote, he was planning to kill his parents in the weeks leading up to their deaths, and that he was communicating with a Russian man about conspiring to overthrow the U.S. government and assassinate President Trump.
The defendant did threaten to kill Witness A if she told anyone what he was telling her after he had given her information that he was speaking with someone from Russia.
Prosecutors say those conversations with the Russian happened on an app called Telegram. Some of the messages discussing how the teen wanted to flee to Eastern Europe, saying, quote, "I'll be able to live a normal life, even if when it's found out I did it."
He's been speaking with someone in Russian about moving to Ukraine after committing these crimes. So the state is concerned that he's a flight risk if he is ever released.
Prosecutors believe C.O.W.S. killed his parents on February 11th, then stayed in the house with their bodies for 12 more days, the whole while communicating with his school, his stepdad's employer, and family members from his parents' accounts. Investigators say surveillance footage from inside the home show C.O.W.S. in the same room as his stepfather's body, quote, "to keep candles lit."
They're indicating they've got video evidence, they've got communication, they've got transactions, they've got a litany of things.
Hannah, it's almost hard to wrap your head around all of these details. Detectives found the house ransacked.
Yeah, so prosecutors say C.O.W.S. ended up tearing up his own home in search for stashes of money as well as family jewelry. And when police ended up arresting C.O.W.S. in rural Kansas, they did find that he had $14,000 in cash on him as well as $14,000 worth of his mother's jewelry. Now, investigators, they will not tell me if they've been able to track down the Russian C.O.W.S. was apparently communicating with via telegram. He is right now here in Waukesha being held in jail on a $1 million bond.
A lot of disturbing details there. Hannah Hilliard reporting live outside the Waukesha County Courthouse. An autopsy shows Donald Mayer and Tatiana C.O.W.S. were killed on February 11th. However, police did not discover their bodies until February 28th. Police arrested Nikita C.O.W.S. in Kansas March 2nd after he ran a stop sign. C.O.W.S. was extradited back to Wisconsin and made his first court appearance in the state 10 days later, charged only at the time with stealing his stepfather's car. Well, today prosecutors charged him with killing his parents.
That if you want ultimate expression of white supremacy and the white supremacist mentality, and you want to put it in the form of one person that I would name, and that's something I very seldom do, it would be Jeffrey Dahmer. He's the ultimate expression of white supremacy. Everything that he was doing, working in a chocolate factory, the whole 9 yards, storing black male bodies in canisters of lye and alcohol and whatnot, got them in the refrigerator, cannibalism and all of that, and calm, very methodical. Even when questioned by the law enforcement officers, very calm. Hannibal Lecter.
Frozen femurs in the freezer. Jeffrey Dahmer.
1 year ago today, a gruesome discovery at Warnemont Park in Cudahy. A hiker found the remains of Sade Robinson, a missing 19-year-old from Milwaukee.
Her disappearance and death rocking the community. 12 News' Cyrus Sandlin takes us to the balloon release in her honor as her family continues to fight for justice.
I missed you so much, baby girl. Mommy loves you so much. And I'm so proud of you.
Choking back tears on a cold spring day, Sade Robinson's mother, Sheena Scarborough, shares her pain.
It hurts me so bad. Not having my baby hurts.
Prosecutors say 19-year-old Sade Robinson was killed and dismembered after a first date on April 1st last year.
Someone found her leg down by the beach here at Warnemont Park the next day. Maxwell Anderson is accused of killing Sade. He's in jail on a $5 million bond.
Since Sade's death, her mother launched Sade's Voice, a nonprofit dedicated to supporting missing persons and victims of crime. The family vowing to empower underserved communities.
We'll get her justice. This will not be tolerated for our Black Indigenous people of color in Milwaukee.
But this week, a moment of healing for the family and community missing a bright young woman gone too soon.
We fly these balloons through the pain. Sade Carlina Robinson is her name. Justice for Sade. Justice for Sade. Justice for Sade. 1, 2, 3.
In Cudahy, Cyrus Sandlin, WISN 12 News.
I think I honestly question if I would still be living and or what my mental health would be. So, yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know where I would be if I'm back in Wisconsin.
First here at 6 o'clock, the mother of a Milwaukee woman murdered after a first date is now suing two bars claiming they contributed to her daughter's death.
And investigators say Maxwell Anderson killed Sade Robinson, then dismembered her body after the two had dinner and drinks last April. 1 year later, Robinson's mother filed a lawsuit against those bars, claiming they served her underage daughter and played a role in her death. Investigative reporter James Stratton with new court documents tonight.
Tonight, a new lawsuit filed on behalf of Sade Robinson, suing two bars prosecutors say she visited with Maxwell Anderson, Twisted Fisherman in the Menominee Valley, and Dukes on Water. Photos shared in previous criminal court records show the couple on a first date at Twisted Fisherman. The lawsuit, recently filed in Milwaukee County, states both bars served her alcohol at age 19 to the point where she became intoxicated. It goes on to say Sade's intoxicated condition created a foreseeable risk of harm to herself. The suit, claiming wrongful death, says serving her and allowing her to leave impaired, quote, caused her fatal vulnerability. The lawsuit alleges at Twisted Fisherman there's video of, quote, the minor being served shots and that she was observed rendered defenseless and ultimately killed. Prosecutors say Anderson killed Robinson, dismembered her body, and spread body parts across the Milwaukee area. Police and bystanders found them in Cudahy's Warnemont Park in South Milwaukee, along the railroad tracks near 31st and Galena, and in Waukegan, Illinois on the lakefront. 12 News contacted both bars Thursday. A representative for Twisted Fisherman declined to comment. Dukes on Water did not respond. The suit, seeking an unknown amount of money, says Robinson's mom and sister, quote, are left in an emotional uproar with no idea when the pain would ever cease. The lawyer for Robinson's mother did not respond to a request for comment. In Milwaukee, James Stratton, WISN 12 News.
Robinson's family is also suing the suspect, Maxwell Anderson, of wrongful death. His criminal trial is scheduled for late May.
Milwaukee.
For late May.
Milwaukee.
For late May.
Milwaukee.
For late May.
Milwaukee.
Context of white supremacy. Gus T. Renegade in another broadcast, hopefully to share constructive information on the system of white supremacy. Today's date, Saturday, April 5, 2025. So I have been told. Our weekly compensatory call-in. Dial in if you have counter-racist suggestions, questions, observations. The number 605-313-5164. The code 564943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. The number again, 605-313-5164. The code 564943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. Have to make sure I catch folks up because sometimes, or I guess often, listeners are inattentive or whatever the case may be. But make sure that it is explicit. All of the reports that we heard at the end of the last 30 minutes worth of reports were all things happening Wisconsin and generally Milwaukee specifically. They lock up all these folks, lots of privilege, black males. So they lock up all these Robs in Wisconsin, regardless of whether they did it. And then we're not going to give you no nickels afterwards. Even if you get exonerated or whatever, like, well, still think you a guilty nigger. So, yeah, good good luck. We wish you the best, Leroy. That the Mayfair Mall incident where we heard that they sick the dogs on you at the Mayfair Mall. That's right outside of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Incidentally, if you want the update like today update, they did fire the security guard. If it makes any difference, this was not a enforcement officer like police canine that sicked on and chomped on this young black teen. This was just a regular security canine. I didn't even know like non-police outfits have canines as well. And if you want to add extra to it, it was a gang of officers, security, not police, I guess, around this young black female who was being chomped on. It looked like all of them, when I say like a gang, like 6, it looked like all of them would be classified as black. Anyway, so that's in Mayfair Mall, Milwaukee. I mean, I think the young lady lives in Milwaukee. The young teen, Waukesha, Wisconsin, Mr. Ketchup, the teenager, killed his mother, biological, and his white stepdad, white mom too, and then went on and kept the bodies in the house for 2 weeks, they said, whatever it was, 3 weeks, whatever. Kept the bodies in that house all that time, putting it up on TikTok and all the rest of it. Had planned to do it. Told the young lady, said he told the young lady this, well, look here. I'm fitting to do my own Dahmer thing. You seen that Netflix? Oh, I'm going to do my own version. I got the barrels and everything. I'm going to, if you say anything, I got an extra barrel for you. And he went on and killed his parents. And then 1 year, it was April 1. It was 1 year ago this week. C.O.W.S. Robinson, killed and dismembered. Killed, and they found her remains in 2 different states, and they still don't have her head. It's been a full year. No head. All of that, and that's like, most of that is not even like just, oh, you're picking on Wisconsin. Nah, man, that's one part of Wisconsin. That is basically all Milwaukee. I looked at that the other day, I said, man, like, why is everything, oh my Lord, we found a foot. Oh Lord, we got corpses. Oh Lord, he didn't kept the corpses for a month. Oh, why is that everything associated with Wisconsin? Milwaukee specifically, is that what Milwaukee mean? Maybe I need to look that up. That's what that mean, maybe. Milwaukee. Oh, they're going to chop you up there. That's what it mean. Milwaukee, chop you up. Or chomp on you. And put the dogs on you. Man. And that segment, they done fired a white man at the schools because we got all the lead poisoning. That was in Milwaukee too. That is what Gus T has to look forward to in late May. I was nervous about California and Buffalo. Apparently things can, Fuller said that, do not say that. That is not inspiring, because apparently in the system of white supremacy, yes, things can always get worse. You could be going to Milwaukee. They don't just kill you, chop you up in Milwaukee. Where is his head? We don't know. Why did he keep the body? That's his mom. Why he keep? We don't know. We don't know. How long Jeff been get? We don't know. We don't know. Milwaukee, that's what that mean? Chop him up. Ugh, man. If you invest in the cows, you can pray for Gus T. Whew. Man. All of that is like this week as well. So don't be thinking like, oh man, you just piled up all that to be picking on Wisconsin. That's the same rule that it would normally be. This is like the last 7 days in Milwaukee. I told you, they just updated that today about Mayfair Mall. Non-white security officer, you're going to have to get a new job, Leroy. You can't just sick the dog on all the black people. Man. I didn't even see nothing good, and I could have just kept stacking and kept stacking and kept stacking. Remember that case, the white fella at the carnival put super glue in his co-worker's soda? Ain't gonna be no Coke Zero now. Where you think that happened at? Come on. If you want to pray for Gus T, you got a whole 2 months to load up. I remember this feeling. I was so nervous about going to California. I was going to California. I was going to L.A. and San Francisco. I love California. Black brother Rob say, I think I might have been dead if I'd stayed in Wisconsin. I don't know if he was in Milwaukee specifically, because the danger is substantially worse than I might be dead. Well, Milwaukee specifically. Hope they find your remains, brother. Hope you don't have to be like Sade C. Robinson's family. Wait 8 months and we get half of your remains. Mess around in Milwaukee if you want to. Oh, I could vomit. Oh. And now, you know, the vomit would be 2 ways. So you could just look at the newspaper what are the people that say don't look at the news? How in the world you gonna live in Milwaukee and not look at the news? Jesus Christ, how many Dahmers do they have out here? God, I got to check the news every day. Where did they find it? Whoa, can't go to the park. Oof. Can't go on no dates in Milwaukee. Jesus Christ. Jeff Dahmer might be at the bar. Maxwell Anderson might be at the bar. White fella that killed his parents and kept the bodies in the house because they let the teens at the bars in Milwaukee, see. You don't know who gonna be at the bar. Woo. Can't even send your child to school. You can pray for Gus T. We will hope he gets out of Milwaukee. I'm going to tell you, I said the vomit is both ways. You could either just read the newspaper in Milwaukee, or you could get the criminal report for the Sade Robinson murder case. Wow. I hope they have lots of recesses at the trial. Allow people to go and compose themselves. Like, I couldn't even read the court report without. And I was prepared for that because Miss Scarborough, Sade Robinson's mother, she said that. Did I have to get myself prepared, get my mind correct for all this, and all the rest of it, to look at these reports and everything? She told me that before I even had this information. Then when I got it, it's like, oh man, woo. Wow. All of that aside, the witness list. This is like the first time that I really went through and sifted through the whole court documents for a murder case. Wow. I would encourage students of counter racism. They talk about all areas of people activity. I guess this is law, right? Cowbell for sure, area 8, but law. Man, especially for one that if it happens in your state, because it'd be easier access, get the court documents. If there's some sort of murder case or case that deals with racism, white supremacy, criminal case, racism, white supremacy, period, Oh, yeah. See if you can go and get all the court documents and then keep up with it. Maybe you can go to court for some of the days. If you have offspring, take your children to court. Like, oh, man, you will hear questions. You'll hear how to deal with people who don't want to answer questions. How to deal with people who are being deceptive. Now, it's not quite the same in a court of law because you have a lot more power and authority to deal with people who perform in that manner. But still, you get to see how some people deal with all of that. Just, wow. You can learn so much. Specifically with that witness list. When I contacted the court clerk in Milwaukee, and she asked, serendipity, I guess, she asked if I wanted the document master list to see all of the files that they have in terms of public records that have been filed for this criminal case. I said, certainly, why wouldn't I want that? So I get it, and I'm looking down, boom, 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 and it had the prosecution jury list. What caught my eye was that it was 7 pages. Wow, why should they have 7 pages of witnesses for one murder victim and one defendant? This is not O.J. Simpson. Whew. I looked at that witness list. Wow. The prosecution alone, 247 witnesses for the Sade Robinson murder case. Wow. That was I did not expect that at all. I am not a veteran of covering murder trials. I was not front row elbowing Jeff Toobin out the way to be in L.A. for the O.J. Simpson trial or any of the others that have happened here in Washington State. But 247 witnesses? Once I started looking at, now who are these 200? Like, what? That is massive. Like, wow. I'm looking through, and it's a lot of the police people, and I keep getting down, and they got canine officers. I keep got pages of this going through. I said, oh. They found her remains in 2 different states and dispersed throughout Wisconsin. So now you have to go and get all of the people who found all of that to testify to what they saw, in addition to the burned vehicle and man. Then I got to close to the end of all this. 247 names. Like, wow, that is wow. I get close to the end. Toxicologists. Oh, man. Stiffen it like this has been a challenging week. Aren't they all in the system of white supremacy, racism? And then I'm going to tell you, there's nothing to look forward to about going to Milwaukee. Say, Brother Gus, I thought you were going to do the Jeff Dahmer tour. That is nothing to look forward to in Milwaukee. I wouldn't care if I got the best interviews with these white people and they said racist jokes and all that. Hey, at the end of the day, aren't we just going to a bunch of sites where a white man did a Sade Robinson and killed and dismembered all these black people? That ain't nothing. What they call that? Disaster tourism, racist tourism. That ain't nothing to look for. Counter racist research, do it when I'm here, but I mean, there ain't nothing. Unless Rob in Wisconsin said, man, I'll tell you, black brother, I would have died. Kyle Rittenhouse, Dahmer, Maxwell Anderson, led, I would have died if I stayed in Wisconsin. Ain't nothing on of us like, man, I can go to like, it's nothing. It is all business. And hopefully I can leave with all of my fingers, toes, skull, teeth, everything intact when I get back. Hey, thank you. But man, it is really scary thinking about being in Milwaukee at all, really. I don't know how Giannis has done it. Like, he has my enormous respect. Like, he ain't been chomped on by the dogs or whatever. He played for the Bucks. And he been there for like a full decade or whatever. He doesn't gripe about it. You see Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, he got out there quick, man. He got to L.A., man. I do not blame you at all, Black. And I can't do it. I'm be Black Muslim. Y'all gonna Jeff Dahmer me? I'm good. Get it. I got to go. I got it. He got one championship and deuces. I'm gonna ready for that. That'll be one thing. And even that, I could research Kareem Abdul-Jabbar comfortably from the 206. Comfortably. Have homemade banana bread, put my feet up where my footies. Learn a lot. They do probably have a lot more details in Milwaukee, but woof. You got to put your skull on the line to go to, oh my God. And the mall, you go to the mall and they put the dog. Oh, I do not want to go to Milwaukee. It is the worst place. That's what it means. Anyway, you can pray for Gus T. Like, we will just courage, and hopefully he won't vomit in the courtroom or embarrass himself. He can come back with all his fingers, toes, skull. He won't get locked up because, they don't give you no nickels if they make up no crimes on you and put you in prison out there. Like, he won't get locked up or nothing. He can get back safely to the 206, and then it would just be he can get back safely, so then we can go to Buffalo, where I also would not be excited about going for any reason under any season, especially now that I've been like, woof. Anyway, stop talking bad about geographic locations. Miss Sheena Scarborough has my undying respect on this week. Still without her daughter's head. She did the ceremony, recognized 1 year since her daughter was murdered. She filed the lawsuit. Those tacky establishments they said liquor shots. That's one of the first things I mentioned when I saw that case a year ago. I said, whoa. Sobriety would be best, but wait a minute. She's 19. How did she get to a bar with a 19-year-old and doing shots? Like, whoa. Miss Scarborough needs to be a billionaire. I need all your crypto for all these establishments. Like, what? Shot like plural? We just tossing them back. Bang. They said it was so many. She was incapacitated. Like, what? What? You're not even supposed to do that for somebody that's 55, got gray hair, 65, just knocking them back. You want another tequila? Knock them back. 19, and you with this white Jeff Dahmer predator. That is one of the first things. And now, what I said is 247 witnesses on the prosecution witness list. End of it. Toxicologist. Now, let's find out. Did we get Swango in here too? I ain't just going to come and, put 3-4 tequilas on. No. I got to slip in, put the old Bill Cosby Quaalude in there. Yeah, because they said she was incapacitated, right? Was that just alcohol? Because the suspicion is that all of this was planned. I was going to do a Dahmer, get me a Netflix special. Was this a Swango too? Oh, man. But on this week, after all that, filed a lawsuit against these tacky bars, contributing to racism and having her daughter killed and dismembered, Miss Scarborough did not forget Gus T. She said, I will send you the links when they do the news reports locally, of course, because nobody cares about this outside of Milwaukee, barely in Milwaukee. I will send you the news reports from this week when we do the balloon release and the lawsuits. And she did immediately, with all the other things for some no-count worthless Negro she has never met on the other side of the continent, made sure I had and she had offered to send me the court files. I said, oh my God, Jesus, man, sit down, take a nap, put your feet up. Can we get you a massage? What can we do for you? Is anything? Let's make the white people at the courthouse work. I'll get them. Don't worry about it. I'm so glad if I had not been able to get them to the courthouse, I would have probably had to go back and, beg her or whatever and get the records from her. But, woo, in fact, I'm going to have to double check to make sure she has everything that I have, which I hope she does. But just to, make sure, wow, that witness, everything else is, grisly and important too. But the witness list alone, in fact, when I saw the witness list, I said, oh man, wait a minute. This white dude, that suspected killer, wannabe Dahmer, this guy's family is supposed to be quite wealthy. Not that much of a shock in Wisconsin's system of white supremacy. They will probably have an adequate defense. He'd probably be out of prison if his bond wasn't so high. But they'll probably have adequate defense. They probably will have, at least a good 50 lawyers. Not 200 or so, but a good 50 lawyers. This might be an O.J. Simpson type thing. What I mean by that, I don't think this is going to be a 2-week, I think this is going to be like, oh, we are contesting everything. Yeah, you got an ankle over here and we still don't know who the head is. But do you know? How did you test? How do you even know that that's C.O.W.S. Robinson's arm? I mean, we found a whole lot of arms in Wisconsin. Ain't that right? Man. End of May in Milwaukee. You can just, let me not be tacky. You can pray for Sheena Scarborough, C.O.W.S. Robinson's attempted family, relatives who've had to endure all. She has a sister, grandparents, father, privileged black male. You pray for them. Sade's voice, visit the foundation. Then if you have a little time left over, you can pray for Gus T. He could do a quality job reporting on all of this, as much important detail as possible, and maybe even help a few, especially younger black people. Whoa, and all that dating white people. Whoa, because this was a first date. This was a first date and the last date. Maybe even make that, hey, the first date can be your last date. C.O.W.S. Anyway, number to dial. You have thoughts to share. We have any listeners in Milwaukee or Wisconsin? How do you do it? I could not stay there at all. I'd have to be classified as white, maybe. Then it would be fun. Even then, Dahmer did kill 1 or 2 white people, and then my man Katsup, he killed his white mom. He killed his white mom. And the stepdad, everybody hates the step parents, but he killed his white mom. Telegraphed. I told you I was going to do it. See, Sheena Scarborough, Mr. Kitzer, us folks in Wisconsin, we say something, we going to do it. Man, I don't want to go. The number is 605-313-5164. The code 564943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. I had to say quite quick, because we did have other segments that were not related to Wisconsin, Milwaukee. That segment about the Rosie, the Riveters, mostly white chicks, and they got the scarf on, got my bicep rolled up in the man. They did the same tacky, blatant act of racism. Now, you know, Leroy ain't told none of you white chicks. Now, look here, Fiona. Look here, Marguerite. You know you can't do no heavy welding work. Put that torch there. You know you can't. You know you need a man. You need big black biceps to get in here. You know. Leroy ain't told you nothing. You need, let's at least be honest. White men came in here being all patriarchal, doing their misogyny and telling us that we can't do the weld and heavy work and males got to do that. Come on. That's one. Two, we had white man racist suspect Charles Hyde as a guest on the program in 2014 in the midst of the kerfuffle in Missouri, summertime. Michael Brown Jr., his body might have still been in the streets, like literally, no hyperbole. But we had Charles Hyde as a scheduled guest way in advance. So we had him on. His book, Arsenal of Democracy, the American Automobile Industry in World War II. I almost got that book to read the exact passage. He has a very vivid report on white women in Michigan going on strikes, vehement racist protest. Like, what? It would be like 1,000 white women, sometimes more. Like, what? You gonna let 12 nigger women come in this factory to clean the toilet? What? We quit. Let's go, girls. Let's go. That's for like 12 black. Not they weren't gonna let the black females come in and be manager or nothing like that. Like, oh, we gotta get Hitler, man, and these Japs and bombers at Pearl. Come on, everybody. What? I don't get it. Did you gonna let nigger women coming in? I know what. I know that. I know you ain't gonna let them use the same bathroom. And he had graphic passages. Arsenal of Democracy. They made these black females like walk into literally the bowels of the building. So if they got a restroom on the first floor, oh no, you better go downstairs and walk in the basement and hop over the rat traps and go over in the corner and urinate and then hope you can get back up here. That type of a thing. Or go outside. We put a piece of cardboard up next to the building. You can use that to kind of shield yourself, and we put some leaves next to it. You can use that if you need a little tissue. That sort of thing. Why then they will come out, hey, all hands on deck. Hey, we all in it. Didn't we trounce on them Japs? And they left that bed. Did we trounce on them Japs? We showed them slant eyes. Come over here and try and jump on. Lamest of the lame. That right. Every time I see Rosie the Riveter, that's what I did. A racist woman. Racist woman. It's not going to be all hands on deck. Is it racist woman? And you heard that it's a black female that they had in that report where they said this is a federal job. That's the same racist resentment you see today. You got to let these nigger women in here because it's a federal job. You say they got to use the same toilet and we not going to have no racism. Oh, I was talking about the Ford plant. That's private. They went and had to go pick some federal industries where they did allow this. They know this racism was widespread even in the federal plants, but whatever. You say the federal plants, they would allow a few black people. What? That's why we end up with this now. We got to go to Doge. We got to cut, brother Elon, cut. We got all this waste, employing all these niggers. Done with all that. Let's see. I already mentioned lead in schools in Milwaukee. In Mexico, they're getting rid of all of the junk food. Now, I do know they have a lot of people that I think are not white in Mexico. I could be wrong. White people do the classifying, but I do tend to forget that they do have a massive obesity problem in that area of the world. I don't know if this is going to work either, but at least it sounds like they're recognizing it, and something has got to be done. Water is always a great water. Now, even when they talk about expense, because I'm not the wealthiest person in the world, I always find it interesting. Like, people will justify like extra expense on any and everything. Tennis shoes, sheets, vehicle, makeup. You name it. We will justify, I got to put a little extra on that. I like a little extra comfort, a little extra luxury, whatever. You're going to put this in your mouth. Let me cut a few corners. I don't need to be the best cucumbers. Like, what? Come on, man. Anyway, most importantly, that junk food, much of it is cheap because I know, at least in this part of the world, and we're pretty close, it's subsidized. The veggies and healthier foods, that could be cheap as well if white people wanted to subsidize that. At this point, they don't. Again, that's Neely Fuller Jr. one more time. White people like things the way they are. That is very important, and that's one of those I don't think we have really grasped. A lot of us don't believe, haven't thought about. A lot of this is connected to now, hey, white people could solve this problem right now. They're dedicated to racism, white supremacy. There ain't no white people who are not racist. You have white people who like what we have now, or they want a slightly different version of what we have now. What do we have now? The system of white supremacy racism. Either that's true or it's not. I think the evidence is kind of overwhelming. Either way, we'll see what happens with that water. That is a great one, especially for children. Like water, water, water. Not candy and all the rest of it. Fruits, and again, a lot of this is what you eat. That is so massive. Doing the best you can as attentive parents. Double O Dimples looks up. Does she see you with a Snickers bar? Does she see you eating bok choy? That's going to be the big one right there. And even before she gets here, he gets here, what are you eating then too, leading up to the birth? You eating Snickers bars? You eating bok choy? They come out, that's what they're going to have a hankering for. You've been eating Snickers bar? Where is my Snickers at? Diet is a major part of the counter racism. Let's see. State senator. Oh, and they said, wait a minute, with the food in Mexico, I did think it was important. Even below the so-called border. Negra, get back. I should have got that in Espanol. They said, any food you try to bring up in the escuela that is negra, they said the food that's bad, what you do, you put a black brand on the food that's get back. Global system of white supremacy. Apparently they don't have a counter-racist movement that's strong enough that, hey man, I mean, we lean on the black people kind of hard, you know. You think it's possible we can pick different colors? Rojo, how about the red? That's stop. We can't do that one. We got to neck that. Anyway, they said LaTanya Johnson, Wisconsin State Senator LaTanya Johnson, she said that, I guess, white people in Wisconsin that unfortunately at this moment, they don't really have an appetite to make reforms to actually compensate non-white people who get locked up, false charges, that sort of thing. They just don't have the appetite at this moment. Delectable Negro. And when I heard that name, LaTanya Johnson, I said, man, that is familiar. LaTanya Johnson. I said, oh, wait a minute. LaTanya Johnson, that is the black female state senator Sheena Scarborough has been working with to get a state task force for missing and murdered black females. She's been talking about that. I played a report about that maybe month or so, just earlier this year. She was talking about that, but she was one of the local officials. And it might end up being the same thing, that white people don't have an appetite for no Negro task force either. Delectable Negroes. I did want to make sure I included in that segment about we don't have an appetite to compensate these wrongly incarcerated black people, non-white people in Wisconsin. They had attorney now, Jared Adams, privileged black male, as a guest on that program, and he talked about his own experience. He wrote a book, Redeeming Justice. Now, they didn't share any of the details about exactly how he got this false arrest and locked up for all this time, and then they don't want to give him a few nickels to help him, compensate for all this. I checked looking for an article, found one, Business Insider, hey, I guess we could just get his book, Redeeming Justice. Reading, hey, biography king. Now, Business Insider says, I don't have a story of being on the streets, selling drugs, whatever, and coming from a bad family. I have a grandmother, family, and friends, and we often get in the car and go to different places outside of our neighborhood. I grew up on the south side of Chicago in a rough neighborhood. You selling crack cocaine. Stop lying. So we go hang out in other places because we didn't want to get shot by the cops or gang members. In the summer of 1998, 1 year before Columbine, my friends and I go to a party after graduating high school. There's everything you can think of. Kids partying. There's drinking. It's a mostly white school, and we're some of the only black students there. Importantly, these young niggers from the south side of Chicago went to this party that is mostly white children in Wisconsin. We start talking to this young white Wisconsin lady, and she invites us to her room upstairs. Do I need to read the rest of this? It seems, yeah, cowbell. Right. But I mean, hey, if you have time, you can pray for Brother. Now, do you see the thread that is running through this? Why do we have the toxicology reports? Why did C.O.W.S. Robinson's mother file a lawsuit this week? We read Lionel Dahmer's memoir, Jeff Dahmer, or some of y'all, I bet, watched that Netflix series. Not the one Elon griping about, but y'all watch Dahmer. That got way more views. He'd trick them, do the Bill Cosby, Quaalude, bow. And you see, and old Jared Adams, everything you can think of. Hey, I'm gonna get me some stuff tonight. Sobriety would be best. Even if that was just promoted as in a system of white supremacy, racism, and do you also see it's with people that are very young. These are people, their brain computer isn't fully developed, so they're not making the best decisions anyway. That was Jared Adams, C.O.W.S. Robinson. It just goes on and on. A lot of Jeffrey Dahmer's, he was chomping on children sometimes. Especially for young people. Man, you are already vulnerable. You put some liquor. They said C.O.W.S. Robinson was incapacitated. I'm not surprised. 19 and you're drinking liquor with a 33-year-old white man who is way bigger than you. Like, oh, yeah, full of total. I'm going to drink you. We got the toxicology experts for a reason. Maybe he just drunk her under the table. Maybe this was Swango too. But at the end of all of that, as long as we are in a system of white supremacy, hey, sobriety would be best. And I mean, maybe we should think about the bar as a very dangerous environment. This is not the place to go and kick it, and I'm going to have a good time, and we're going to have a first date, and I'm going to meet a cool fella, I'm going to meet a swell gal. Nah. I could die. First date? last date. Not our last date, I mean your last date on the planet. They get your tombstone together. This is your end date. Sobriety would be bad. Definitely, I'm not drinking no liquor with white. Some idiot been saying that for years. White people, alcohol, one of the worst combinations, most dangerous in the known universe. Anything might happen. I done got charged, gang rape, and sentenced to 15 years. Oh, my Lord. All I remember, we had the Mad Dog 2020 and white woman in Wisconsin, and then, oh, Lord. Hey, what'd it say? Fuller told it. It could be worse. What do you mean, Brother Gus? Maybe we don't find you ahead. Sobriety would be best, especially in Wisconsin. Jesus Christ, you got enough troubles and things to worry about. Let's see. Number again, 605-313-5164. The code 564-943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. Whew, we'll see folks have commentary to share. If we have folks who have been to a murder trial, like you actually went, followed it in court. I guess TV might count because they have so many. I guess they've had a number of those on, but it's a little different going to the courtroom and doing all that. If we have any folks who have done that, hopefully not for any personally intimate reasons, but just if something happened in your area out of curiosity, whatever the case may be, or even for job purposes, if you had to go and, observe, record, whatever the case. We have any folks who have participated, or I don't know, might have had some folks who had to do jury duty as well, I guess, even though they do a great job of prohibiting niggers from being on the jury. But if we have any folks who snuck in there, let us know if you've had jury experience for a murder trial. 605-313-5164, the code 564-943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. See, folks are spectating or have things to share. If they, I don't know if we have folks in the Wisconsin area as well listening. If maybe they have something constructive that they enjoy about Milwaukee or the Wisconsin area in general that I can put on my list so that I'm feeling stressed or anxious about all of the gruesomeness of the murder trial and such. But like, oh man, yes, this is on the list. I can go and do this. It's not related to Jeff Dahmer or nothing else, corpses, nothing like that. Go do this and, okay. Untiljustice@gmail.com. You can send an email if you think of something, as we proceed. I'll have some time before we have to get ready to depart. So if you think of it this month, even next month, let Gus T know something constructive, fun, not related to killing, Dahmer, dead black people. Preferably not dead black people. It's supposed to be something fun and constructive. So if you know of something that would qualify of that nature for the Wisconsin area, let Gus T know. I would super appreciate it. Milwaukee area specifically. I'm not trying to globetrot the whole state. They're, like I said, super duper on counter-racist assignment and going to trial every day. But things in the Milwaukee area, constructive, fun, let Gus T know. That would be grand. Let's see. Give folks a second to see if they have commentary or if they're spectating in the interim. Man, I cannot stress enough. And I said this, I had so much regret. Yesterday, we're reading Abraham Bolden, the biography kings, reading Abraham Bolden's memoir, The Echo from Dealey Plaza, and so beautifully timed for this moment with the release of the JFK files. And Mr. Bolden, the portion that we read yesterday where he talked about how they printed new Secret Service badges in the wake of the assassination of Kennedy in '63, and he said that this was the Bureau of Printing and Engraving. I said, oh my goodness, Mr. Fuller, he worked for the Bureau of Printing and Engraving. He talked about it he worked there for 30 years. And he was working there at the time of the Kennedy assassination. I said, oh my God, I can't believe that. Like, man, to have talked to Fuller, me personally, and not asked him about that specifically, because I sure enough would have asked him, like, do you remember the Secret Service badges being printed at any point? Do you remember them being printed after the assassination? Did you ever see these badges? Like, do you remember what they look like? Do you have your badge? What did that look like? How, like, whole batch of questions came to mind. Like, do you think a really powerful white person that they could have got access to get, some extra badges or save some old just batches of it? Did you get to meet Mr. Abraham Bolden? Did you see that story? Because he read batches, like, oh my God, like, just, man, because this book was published, the one we're reading, it's published in like 2008, so I easily could have read this book way long time ago and easily got all of those questions answered. If he had read it, maybe he, had the book and had highlights, like, oh yeah, I met Brother Bolden, bunches of times. We did speaking engagement together. Who knows? Like, anyway, reading more important than watching television, and even more importantly, if you have like the parents, grandparents, aunties, uncles, older neighbors, people, if they're at your church, wherever, that you have like a rapport, you talk to these folks, you all hang out and such, ask them about important events. And lots of it might even be something where you come back and have you address this regular. When you all hang out, if you go hiking or you all go fishing or whatever you do, we cook together, whatever, you can revisit, if it's a really important subject matter. Where were you when Kennedy was assassinated? Where were you when Dr. King was assassinated? Where were you when Malcolm X was assassinated? What did you think? Did you just think some black people had killed him? And blah, 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 all of that, all of those really important events, and just see. Unfortunately, it seems like we have heard from a lot of people where they've, had to say things like, I didn't pay attention to all that. I didn't care about all that at the time, or I didn't do any serious research in. I've heard that, unfortunately, when I've asked that question as well. But you never know. Fuller did have direct recollection, and then, like, man, that's so. Anyway, I've had to stew about that for a day or so, but man, if you have folks, or if you know them, period, even if they're not relatives per se, it could just be a neighbor, and you all have great rapport, constructive dialogue. Ask things they remember, things that they saw. What did you think about all of that? Did you read anything about all that? Do you remember what they said on TV about all that? Then maybe some more questions will come from there. But yeah, I think that's way better in my view. We are in a system of white supremacy, and maybe if you're doing this, like, let's say everything I did, let's say Fuller was my grandparent or uncle or something like that, okay? And we'll also, since this is imagination, we'll say I have a nephew, right? Okay. If you can go and chat, so now I get to go and do it. Dang, Fuller, where were you when Kennedy was assassinated? And then now I got my nephew, nieces. They can listen to all that, and he're like, wow. Now it's the same thing. We keep talking about, how do you talk to your children about white supremacy, racism? I keep saying, now it's great. They do have more books, more of them coming. And I mean, that can be a task for a counter-racist listener. You're looking, what do I do? What do I do? You write children's books, especially if you got children, but write children's books. Write books for parents to talk to their children about racism. All that aside, and those are great resources, but for reals, you can just talk about your experience as a victim in the system of white supremacy? What's your experience going to school? What's your experience on the job? Take out the expletives. There you go. This is that same process. Let's go hear what Grandpa has to say about, now, where were you? Kennedy was assassinated. Where were you? Dr. King was assassinated. There you go. Let them, you ask your questions. What do you think? Go to your niece. What, you got any questions? Wow, okay. And like I said, the revisit. Everybody takes care of themselves. Maybe you all come back, you revisit. Maybe some questions come to your mind later on. Same thing, nieces, nephews. Question comes to mind later on. Maybe even spark some research later on. All that, in my opinion, is just so much better than this normal. We're going to talk about, what the Lakers going to do, or, who going to win the Super Bowl this year, and all that old nonsense. It's March Madness. Who you got your money on in the tournament? What you think going to happen? Like, come on, we have much more. Sade Robinson. All the other body parts piled up in Wisconsin and beyond. We're talking about Patrice Lumumba and white people bragging about having his teeth in a jar. Come on, man. We can do way better. And that, I think you'd have a lot of older, but not all the time, but I think there would be some older non-white people who might even, appreciate getting a moment to talk about some of the major events, that they lived through and what they remember from all that. Might spark some recollections that they haven't even considered for some time. Anywho, let's see. Folks who dialed in, hand up. You have commentary to share. Our caller down in Florida who, on neutralizing workplace racism, now he just mentioned Terrell Bradley in Florida, privileged black male, where they sicked the canine, put the dogs on him, and, just horribly mauled him and what have you. He talking about the white dude who came in there. It's a shame. I didn't appreciate the way that they messed over old Terrell Bradley and work. Like, what? What? Why are you talking? Like, let's just get the paperwork and get on. But I had said the dog thing, that was going to come up, as it usually does. Black people just being mauled out in public. I guess I'll say really quick on that one as well. Now, they did say all of that was precipitated, that there was some sort of physical altercation at the mall. Security was called. By the time security arrived with the canine, the altercation had ended and people were dispersing. But for whatever reason, the dog, Negroes, and chomped on this young lady who's 19, same age as Sade Robinson, and wouldn't let go. You got a video of him just works, most horrible thing you can imagine. You do not want to get into no physical fights and brawls out in public. Like, you could be killed. Certainly in Milwaukee, but lots of other places too, especially if they see us all black people. Oh, man. They say you all coordinated some sort of flash mob, and you're going to try and rape and rob all of us white people out here and all of it. Like, oh, man. You do not want to have no fistic, anything even looks like that. It is time to go. And I would tell young people, this was a young 19-year-old victim who got mauled. You have children, nieces, nephews. Tell them you do not want to be cutting up out at the mall. Like, oh, man, they will nigger knock you up, chomp you up, and then charge you after, say, flash mob. See? Let's see. Caller in Florida at the courthouse. If you have commentary to share, should be with us.
Yes, sir. May I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Greetings to Gus, the host, the listeners and callers. Yes, Gus, I was just getting into listening to the audio where that segment at the mall was occurring, and they said the victim was limping away, and I was like, oh my goodness, and that's something I was thinking about, is like, are these canines, I'm thinking, a train to attack black people or something, and I think that the audio where someone was calling, I think the mall or something, security, and was trying to request to speak to I guess some kind of a manager or something, and the person on the other end was like, hey, we can't make no comment on what happened. And that reminded me of, like, if someone had an attorney or something, like, hey, we can't really have too much to say. And when you mentioned about going to court and the jury duty, I do remember having to go to, before I started working at the courthouse where I'm at. I went to the criminal courthouse, and it was, everybody else was white on the jury, but it was for, I believe, like a felony case, I believe, but it wasn't like a murder trial or anything. But they do tend overwhelmingly to have white juries a lot of the time, and we send out lots of these jury summons. I think it's increased in the last 2 years, actually. And there is a federal courthouse across the street. There used to be a post office, and now it's a federal courthouse. But I have gone to the courtrooms and everything, and I know they make sure they have those officers up there as well, and I suspect they are racist. And actually, they've only had like maybe 1 or 2 black officers. And as far as the area where I'm in, I think it's that Danny Rollins racist trial, or the racist murder of those students, where they had that trial occur in what's called the civil courthouse now, before the criminal courthouse was built. They finally caught him, I think after like 2 or 3 years, and had his court trial in the courthouse. But I'm going to definitely be having my prayers for you, sir. And there was a incident that I seen on a news report, Gus. I don't know if you heard of this one. I think it was in Texas, that it was a black male, I guess like defending himself, and he stabbed this white boy. And I'm hearing that he was being bullied. I suspect racism is involved, and I think it's somewhere in Texas, and it was 2 white brothers, and they were from what I'm hearing, like bullying this black male child, and I'm still learning more about it. I think the black male name is Carmelo Anthony, I believe, and that's all I have to share. Thanks for allowing me to speak.
Much obliged, caller. At the courthouse, they for sure, even if the black people get the jury summons and you come down, you put your best suit and tie on, gussy up, get down to the courthouse on time and everything, got my summons, I'm going to come in, do my civic duty, and be on the jury duty. Same thing they say in Mexico when you got the black brand on the food. Black, get back. Strike, juror number 17, strike. Yes. Next. Strike, juror number 22, strike, and they just get rid of all the niggers, and then, okay, now we pretty much got it together now. Especially if it's something serious like murder trial, anything like that. Oh no. We're not gonna have no whole bunch of black people. Nah. Now I did play a report at the beginning. We had a lot of Milwaukee reports at the end, the dog mauling and C.O.W.S. Robinson, but we did catch Carmelo Anthony, and they say, shame on you. Look at you playing reverse racist. See, that's why they had trending this week, white Lives Matter. They say Austin Metcalf, say he can't even say little white fella's name, got killed down in Frisco, Texas. Now, the reports I've seen, obviously this is, just happened a few days ago and whatever. Now, the White Lives Matter, that erupted like immediately. Said, what? Some Negra, not the Hall of Fame basketball player, Carmelo Anthony, not spelled the same, but phonetically it is the same, Carmelo Anthony. But this is a 17-year-old anyway. But this 17-year-old privileged black male, they say he stabbed this white Austin Metcalf, stabbed him and killed him at this high school track meet in Frisco, Texas, which is really close to Dallas, like the eastern part of the state, if my Texas geography is accurate. And killed him and died. Austin Metcalf died in his white twin brother's arms, and had his father on during the interview and such. Now, I have seen news reports where they say Carmelo Anthony, they say it was some sort, they were going to have a track meet, and I guess they went to different schools, and the white male had said something to him, and then the black male said, you mess around, you're going to find out, type of a thing. And that the white dude either grabbed his bag or did something, and he responded, so we'll see. And he'd said self-defense. I think he'd said immediately, he didn't say, Carmelo Anthony, he didn't say he didn't do it or whatever. He said this was self-defense, that this white dude had said or did whatever first, and this is how I responded. We'll see how this transpires. I do know I have seen pictures of the white male who was killed, Austin Metcalf, with his white twin brother, where they were out hunting, and they have what to me looks like it could be an AR-15, where they both have an AR-15, and they have their hunting gear together. Oh man. And I didn't see any, for the most part, any like disparaging, like, oh my God, what type of new age thugs and hoodlums and who? I didn't really see nothing like that. Just, oh man, he died in his brother's arms, and that's tragic and awful, which it is. But if that had been any, and I mean, you can plug in the black person, Sandra Bland, the young lady who got chomped on at Mayfair Mall this week, Tamir Rice, plug in the person, Dr. King. If they had a photo of them cheesing it up for TikTok or IG with an AR-15 or with their crew of homies, they could be relatives, and we all gonna pose and look tough with our AR-15s. Oh my God, like, maybe he should have been killed. We got black identity it would have been way different in terms of the response. Just, it would not have just been, they love hunting and, right on, Second Amendment right, and I'm sure they go out and hunt safely, and what's wrong with that, and this is still a tragedy. That's kind of the way that I saw when these pictures came out. It wasn't a big deal. But that is important to see and I mean, I think this happened in front of other students. I don't think it was just Austin Metcalf and Carmelo Anthony. I think it was a track meet. So I think this happened in front of a lot of other people. So yeah, we'll be able to, I think, get lots of witness testimony as to what happened. What was said. Was there bullying? Was there racism? We shall see. But I do know it was immediate. White Lives Matter. I am sure their family's going to get all kinds of money. Like, oh my goodness. And the way that, like, Kyle Rittenhouse, and you have these other cases where someone white kills a black person, and they get all this defense money, and oh my goodness, I mean, we need to get security for the family and make sure that their uncles and family can get a few extra pancakes because it's been stressful on them, and anybody, you got an extra quarter, and come on, let's pile in, make sure. Oh man, I cannot see that happening for no Carmelo Anthony, and I'm sure he's going to be charged as an adult. He's 17, but whatever, you might as well be 85. You can kill the white boy, like, anyway. Yeah, we'll have to see how that transpires, especially, we'll have to see how that transpires, but I'm certain he will be charged as an adult, and if any of the witnesses step forward to say what they, and as I keep saying, this is at a track meet. It's been my experience, any sort of high school middle school, college athletic competition, no one should be stabbed, although I think even retired firefighter has told us, like, it's pretty common for folks to come out and cut a fool, literally sometimes, straight razor and all. But at these athletic competitions for people to get really riled up, brain damage or whatever, and they go out and, man, I got to, put hands on somebody. Even the parents in the stand, I get upset because my child won or your child won or whatever. So that has been going on for a long time, lack of sportsmanship, and it even leading to, people getting seriously injured in fights and even killing sometimes, shootings sometimes. So, man, horrible all the way around. We are in a system of white supremacy racism. I certainly don't know about the guilt or innocence in this case, but I did hear exactly what he said. I did hear the alleged or the charged young black male, Carmelo Anthony. I did hear him. It reported that he said this was self-defense. This white dude was doing something to me first, and I responded. We shall see. He ain't no George Zimmerman. Much obliged, our caller at the courthouse. Let's see. Other folks, they have commentary, observations to share. They paid attention to that case down in Texas. The young fella accused of stabbing. I'm sure. Now, even that will be interesting to see how they proceed. They end up charging him with first-degree murder as an adult, because I was looking at the C.O.W.S. Robinson case. I've been saying this for a while. They're not charging Maxwell Anderson with first-degree murder. I think it's first-degree homicide or, something. It's not first-degree murder. You chop somebody up, they still don't find a head, set the vehicle on fire, underage drink, all of that is not first-degree murder. We have to see what the charges are for the young fella down in Texas. That, again, though, like I said, I would think about that with athletics in a system of white supremacy racism. The racism, one, and then two, so much of the culture of white supremacy racism is about violence, killing people, and, bragging about being violent against other people. So, like I just said, we've talked about this before. Like, this is not uncommon. This is not the first time I've heard this, especially if we were talking about, it's just maybe a little odd because we normally are not talking about fisticuffs and violence at track meets. But if we were talking about a football game, that's all the time. They go and shoot up the football. What? You didn't? Oh, man. Cheerleaders got to go running and all. Man, they've had to move. Like, this wouldn't even be, I don't even know if it would be that big a deal. Like, they have had to move the times of football games for the high schools I'm talking about, maybe for some of the middle schools too, but I know definitely for high schools. Leroy and Devontae and them get out there and get mad because you done embarrassed us and I done lost in front of my kinfolk and everything. They had to move. We can't play at night no more. Man, we got to play broad daylight. We hope maybe that'll decrease the violence and, we won't come and shoot up the game if the wrong team wins. Now you got the gambling too, so I done went on, DraftKings and lost all my money betting on y'all. Now I definitely got to shoot up the whole facility. That's all I'm saying. That's widespread. That's the system of white supremacy, racism, and what is promoted. So that would be something else I would think about if you're going to do athletics. I mean, yeah, I guess you could get a scholarship and get some exercise. So they say, you also could get some brain damage and a whole lot of other non-constructive things as well. And the racism that's there. That was alleged too. I don't know if that's part of it. We'll see. Retired firefighter in Florida. Do you have commentary to share? Should be with us.
Greetings, everyone. Three things. I'll start off with what I just was hearing. It appears to be the same at all of the track and field events on the high school level. When they have the meets at the stadiums, they have tents to identify the particular school. But there's nothing illegal about someone that is not a student at that school to be sitting under somebody else's tent. That's not illegal. The biggest problem the black male is going to have is the weapon, or what can be considered to be a weapon. I mean a knife. I don't know exactly what type of knife he had, but it probably could be considered a weapon, and him bringing that into the stadium. What I heard, that there was a physical confrontation before the stabbing, which assumes that the stabbing was a reaction to the physical confrontation that was initiated by the deceased young fellow. But still with the black male, the idea, the challenge would be with the knife. But it's possible, and I heard this on a report, that the attorney is going to probably use stand your ground, which I suspect in the state of Texas, the stand your ground rule is very attainable if a white person uses it. I don't know. I mean, logic would tell you on how that would carry out with a black male. It probably would only work if it was a black male that killed another black person. But in this case, and I also noticed the I'm going to call it the propaganda of describing the deceased. Everything was good about it. You would have thought this person was Jesus or somebody. He never did anything wrong. He was the captain of the football team, straight A student. But when they showed a picture of him, when they showed a picture of the black male, at least one of them I saw, it was similar to what the court system did with O.J. Simpson, with that photograph that they took of him. It was similar to that, except for they put him in, the hairstyle that the young people wear nowadays, the little short dreads and stuff, that sort of thing, to kind of like make him look like, that he's some sort of criminal. But actually what I think he was just another one of the athletes that was at the meet. And he may have known somebody on that team. And he was just sitting there, waiting on the person. It could be anything. But anyway, the other two incidents in Richmond Heights, I think it's some serious efforts to move out anything that has to do with the history. The people who were benefited from the housing that's in the place that's called Richmond Heights, move to thoroughly move all of that history out, as well as the children and grandchildren, out of the area. In a sense, it's being built by it's hard to find a family member that would take the house. Just about all of the people who originally had stake of the home in 1949 are deceased, and there's a lot of cases where the children either didn't want the home or couldn't keep up with the payments on the home and sold the home. So that makes it easier for someone else to come in to purchase the home. Also, there's also some talk about changing the names of the streets. I don't know what type of idea that would be. Some of them are named after some of the black figures who were counter-racist 100 years ago, like Booker T. Washington. Also, there was a black female that had a drugstore on the street that's called Lincoln. But I don't know what that's coming to as far as the street name. Other than that, today I went to something that's called a symposium on mentoring programs, and it was, somewhat organized, and it would break up into little rooms that you would go to with somebody would share something that you may want to apply to your particular program, that sort of thing. And also they gave out awards. But I was sitting in through some of this, and I did not hear the word racism, white supremacy at all. I didn't hear anything about sharing, like you are encouraging, sharing knowledge and understanding about racism, white supremacy to the children. That I didn't hear anything like that at all. Besides that, there was some constructive exchange from me hearing what some of these programs were doing with the advent of exposing children to different things that are essential that we should be doing when we are in contact with our young people. This talking about and mentioning about the global system of racism, it can't be neglected. It can't be neglected at all in my thoughts. And that's all. That's my report. Thanks for listening.
Much obliged. Retired firefighter in Florida. Now that will be, I just said now, hey, the young fella in Frisco, Texas, Carmelo Anthony, 17-year-old black male charged with stabbing this White Lives Matter, Austin Metcalf. Now he can try. Say, I'm going to be the colored George Zimmerman. And it's going to be way more difficult for him because this was a school track meet. Often they have specific rules about weapons on school property, and they normally get very wide latitude. Like even if this was a nail clipper knife, as retired firefighters say, it might have been one of the plastic pieces of cutlery that's used, at a restaurant or what have you, that they use just to put a little bit of slab of butter or what have you on your bagel. Even that, they might not, particularly if you use it, you didn't kill the white person. Like, oh yeah, that's a weapon. That's a weapon. And like I said, they'll have policies that are very stringent about the use of weapons on school property. So yes, that will be, I suspect it will be very challenging for a stand your ground defense in Texas on school property, killing a white person. And they have studies, like years worth of studies looking at stand your ground cases, and they already know. Lots of people should already know. It is way easier to get a successful stand your ground case if you are classified as white, and especially if you were standing your ground against Leroy. It is substantially more difficult for Leroy to stand his ground, and especially if Leroy is trying to stand his ground against the man. And this was technically racist child, so we will see what the result is. In terms of Richmond Heights, Florida, this area might be vulnerable to sea level rise as well. Many parts of southern Florida are dealing with that, so that might be one of those like double whammy, like sea level rise difficulties and then so-called gentrification, aka racial dislocation. And in some areas they're saying that will be the racial dislocation that the water is a-coming. Y'all are getting out of here. Now, maybe white people can come in and put infrastructure to stem some of that, or maybe they can build better to resist all of that. But either way, you niggers are out of here. That also would be something worth talking about. But when retired firefighter, when he said that about going in Richmond Heights and recognizing some of these historic figures, Booker T. Washington and others, they didn't mention racism, VGQ. That's quite often. It can be scary. That said, Mr. Fuller said, we are like the award givenists and celebrate and honor black people. Like, he had said this a long time ago, like more than 25 years ago, like before O.J. Simpson trial. He said this a long time ago. And he said, you know, all those awards and banquets and, oh, we got to celebrate. Whoa, give it up for Leroy. And like, come on. And he said this is like a big part of black culture, to do all this, you know, celebrating and whoopee, and we are the most celebratingest people to be victims of white supremacy. Like, what is there to celebrate on the slave ship? Like, let's get off the slave ship, and then we can like get to all the let's pay homage and all the rest of it. I mean, we're in such pitiful position. Like, man, we do not need plaques and trophies and award and Negro of the Month. And come on, replace white supremacy with justice. And I think moving in that direction, us having the courage to just be a little bit more honest and speaking truthfully, accurately about racism, white supremacy, and it being the source for all the problems that we are experiencing, even our response to so-called sea level rise, climate change, however else you want to phrase it. I learned a word this week from a book, no less. Let me see if I can find the book without a whole lot of rigmarole. Let's see. It's a lot of rigmarole. Guess I should have pulled it up first. Then I wouldn't have had to be. Where did it go? And the rest of it. But I didn't anticipate I was going to have it at this moment. But I learned they were talking about specifically the science of ignorance. And I was hearing about all this. I immediately applied it to racism, white supremacy, because white people spend so much time claiming to be ignorant about racism when that is not the case at all. But in the midst of hearing about this concept, they brought in climate change, and they talked about, now really all this gets back to master deceivers, how different ways that white people practice racism, white supremacy. And they said with regards to climate change that amongst white scientists, there is about 97% agreement that climate change is real and that our human behavior is probably impacting the changes in weather that we are experiencing. They said a major part of individuals who maybe see what we are seeing right now, and we got to get rid of the EPA, and we don't care about everybody doesn't deserve clean air, as we heard for Chicago. They said that a part of the strategy has been confusion. This isn't settled. We don't know. It's really confusing. We don't know if people are causing the problem. I mean, who can really say? That sort of thing, to just keep saying that and to create confusion, to make it seem really muddled. And they talked about how white people will do this in lots of different areas for something that, no, it's not muddled at all. Like, it seems like there's a pretty wide consensus about whatever this viewpoint is. And cigarette industry, they were saying that they would do the same type of thing. I might even say, what does it mean to be white? But anyway, but the racism, I said, I brought that to mind immediately because I said white people do that for themselves in saying we are ignorant, and they create a variety of where they even talked about the importance of words and how language plays into that. Who is intelligent and you are dumb because you don't have all these cool words like us. And white people go in and make up words to feign ignorance about racism when they are the most informed about lynching Negroes. Nobody knows it better. Look at Dahmer. But yeah, it was fascinating. As I have to get I got a number of texts yesterday and got discombobulated. Oh, there it is. There it is. I just got discombobulated because I picked up a lot of interesting books at the library. So, the term agnotology. Now, apparently this isn't even that new. It's been here for more than 15 years, but I had never heard it before, and I got the sense that a number of other folks had not heard this term either. Took even a few attempts to, what? Agnotology, the study of ignorance. And even knowledge production, or I would even say knowledge concealment. But it was very interesting, and even it was said it is important to make up terms. Agnotology, how fuller is that? I wonder if he got to hear that term, agnotology. But in fact, this is a book, Agnotology, the making and unmaking of ignorance. Now, as with everything, I was already thinking racism would have to be a major component of all this, because white people, they sit up and lie about being ignorant all the time. Get to chapter 10 in the book Agnotology, White Ignorance. Charles W. Mills, guest on the Cows in 2010, where we talked explicitly about white ignorance and there being no such thing. That was my thinking of agnotology. I don't know if he's going to write it out in that fashion, how white people lie and try to trick us into believing that the problem is that they are ignorant about racism. No, they lie and concoct new terms and fancy concepts to make it seem, make us believe, us as non-white people, believe, white people don't think about racism. They just don't know. We just need to get them to the white privilege conference, and then they'll stop cutting off our testicles and locking us up in prison for no reason and chopping off C.O.W.S. Robinson's skull. Come on. That chapter is not in this book, Agnotology, but it should be, because that is a whole science. That is one of the main sciences on the planet. Keep these niggers thinking that we is ignorant and that not all white people is racist. And the ones who are racist, those white people are ignorant. That's one of the biggest lies on the planet. It's a two-parter. Anyway, assume we did not miss any of the folks who dialed in comments they wanted to make sure we got in. Grand check social media. I will update for programs for this coming week. See if we can get some more filmmakers on, as well as some of the JFK research in getting ready for Milwaukee. Any hoodles. It is getting a little bit warmer. Hopefully folks can get outside and get some stroll time in. If you have non-white people, children, all that, maybe you can turn off the television for a little while, put the junk food down and ultra-processed snacks, and get some exercise, get some fresh air, drink some water, talk about racism, white supremacy while you do a little yoga at the park or hike at the park, take a little jog out on the trails, get a little sunshine in now that it's not so frigid, depending on, where you are. I guess maybe it's not that cold in Florida to begin with, but still. Get outside, get to the farmer's market, get some fresh produce, all of that. Making a little progress, be a little bit healthier, have a little bit more health and vitality to replace white supremacy with justice immediately, and modeling better eating habits for non-white children. That is so important. Really something to think about and put into practice before you have the children. Can't be snacking on all that nonsense, white sugar and soda pops, cheeseburgers and Cheetos and all that, and then you have a new black child sit and watch you eat all that every day. Come on, we can do way better. Way better. Any hoodles, check updates at Until Justice online, other outlets for updates, upcoming programs. At minimum, we will be here on Thursday, Neutralizing Workplace Racism, Friday for the Catherine Massey Book Club and Abraham Bolden's The Echo from Dealey Plaza. Again, yesterday, April 4, Dr. King assassinated those over 50 years ago, 1968. 57 years to yesterday's date. That would be another one. Asking your attempted relatives, the ones who have a little bit more seniority, if they were present when that happened, what do they remember? Hey, did you go out in the street and cut a fool after Dr. King was killed? Like that, I mean, that would be wild to know. Like if they did, engage in that activity, and what do you think? Was it worth it? Did you get caught? Did you get to loot a new TV? What if you didn't loot? Did they loot at all? And if you didn't, it decided not to do so. Why not? You heard Fuller. You had the same logic without reading for that's what I'm saying. Like, I think all that is way more constructive to talk about. You get to talk about white supremacy, racism. If you have children around, they can listen to all of that. And I think that is much, 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 much more valuable than the normal foolishness and nonsense. What you watch on TV, man? What you think about them Blue Devils, man? Who you think gonna get that championship, man? Who you think gonna win that Kentucky Derby, man? Come on, man. I think it's way more important. Replace white supremacy with justice immediately. In fact, with Sade Robinson, what I've been saying for a year, I'm sitting here, I don't want to have to ask her mother. I've been saying, did you talk to Sade about Jeffrey Dahmer? Local Milwaukee history, right? That's what I'm saying. Hey. For Sade, sobriety would be best. Maybe we say it that way for a while. I don't have to say nothing else. And can I be in court for them toxicology report? And really, when I saw that witness list of 247 witnesses for the prosecution alone, I said, man, I really need to try to stay in Wisconsin for the whole trial. If it lasts 3 months, you really need to try your best to stay there for the whole 3 months. Like, oh my God, I could vomit. Like, I do not want to be in the Wisconsin for 3 months. For Sade, for them toxicology reports. Counter-racist assignment, sobriety would be best. You can talk about current events too, for sure. You got children, you got teens. Oh no, we ain't got to have no hollow conversations about sobriety would be best. Now, Sade Robinson, 19 years old. First date, last date. Creator, remind us, utilize our time and energy to replace white supremacy with justice immediately. Help us to stop wasting non-white people's time and energy, including our own. Minimize contact, minimize conflict. Stop name-calling black people. Stop being discourteous to black people. Stop gossiping. Stop producing throwaway offspring. Replace white supremacy with justice immediately. Cow signing out. Thanks all for tuning in.
Nigga, you so brainwashed. I'm a victim, brother. Problem. You're a victim. Man, I'm a victim of 400 years of conditioning. Shut up. The man has programmed my conditioning. Even my conditioning has been conditioned.